everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button for me. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. All is appreciated. And the StreamYard link is there for anybody who wants to join the panel. Tonight, we're going to do another review of the great LLC Takeover. My apologies. I've got to do some edit on that. It is supposed to be the great LLC Takeover. A video I did a while back. And like I said earlier, I ran across a guy that mentioned LLCs as the new way to go. And I tend to agree with him on the private side of things and not as registering them as LLCs, but operating them or conducting the affairs the same way. So we're going to get into it with the great LLC Takeover review.
I'll let you go first, Mons. Well, I know you need a LLC in order to open up a private business, mom and pop type shop. I know that it protects you from personal liability. Most people don't know this. They just passed a law that takes effect at the start of the next year that if you don't fill out the paperwork for every LLC you own, you will be paying $500 fine every single day.
So it's important to give them notice, but it's a notice of a private limited liability company not taking upon the personal liabilities of an official office. If you understand the language better, you'll come to that same conclusion, I believe. And this is why I say, there's a link down there for anybody who wants to join the panel, and I need other people's input so that I can help discern for myself whether what I'm putting out is true. Because if you have complaints, concerns, or anything like that, please let me know so I can continue researching. I am very open and need, at this point in time, I believe it to be true and correct. So if you have anything to rebut against it, please let me know so we can perfect this stuff for everybody's use. Interesting. Again, the true benefit is the knowledge.
I missed the question. What was the question?
What do you know about LLCs?
I know they're limited in their liability. I tell you that. My business operates under an LLC, and I'm not necessarily happy with that. It needs to be revamped to something other than an LLC.
And to this point, that is the foundational start. And once you start it with as an LLC, and like this guy here, he's a sole proprietor LLC. So his establishment is, again, what I believe from my research to be a simple indemnification. Well, there are different advantages to LLCs. We're going to show you one of the disadvantages if you don't know what you're doing. Because LLCs, as limited liability corporations, aren't necessarily really big corporations. They're actually kind of small. And as we're going to watch in this video, we're going to see the greed of an LLC to expand and grow can over or supersede its ability to maintain itself through what they operate under. And that is the LLC voting system. As an LLC, you don't necessarily have employees. What you have is a group of owners that operate together in ownership. They have a share in the votes. And so if you have a sole proprietor where nobody else has any vested interest in votes, guess what? You have all power. It's your LLC. That's why I say it's very pertinent to maintain careful works. Be careful to maintain good works. So we're going to watch this video. And welcome, Moose. How you doing tonight? Okay.
Moose is a man of many words tonight.
Absolutely, absolutely. He's left a note in the chat that they cut the phone services, so he might be having problems. Moose, if you're there, let us know. If not, we're going to get into this and figure out what you got to do.
I also want to chime in that, as you said, the greed. You have the opportunity to make a lot of fiat currency and not have to pay it back if you know what you're doing as well.
Well, and that's part of the structure of the LLC is that the money earned from the investment is actually the investment is a co-investment by the quote employees. They're not really employees. They're co-owners because they have an investment in it. So instead of taking a paycheck, they actually work for free. And they actually earn their money off of the shares of the company stock. They write checks to each person, either themselves as a LLC member managed, or if they hire an outside manager. But if that's their income, They're creating an investment. And when remember we looked at the NASDAQ definition of investment means creation of money. That's what all the documentation is.
Case. Then there's an obfuscation with whether they're actually
It's what has the warranted information.
employed. So it goes to wages. What do you determine for wages and stuff? So it's a particularly sticky situation if you don't know what you're doing as members yourselves. So let's take a look at this. And this here is from Reckless Ben. There's a link down in the detail section to the video. And then we're going to pull this up and watch what happens. It says, I overthrew a restaurant that was run by a cult. And I'll give you a trailer type situation here. The guy that started out investigating a cult, and he went undercover. And the supposed cult, as he's calling it, has their own little religious 508 C.O.W.A.R.D.S, where they're a nonprofit. And so everything that they make through their religious organization goes.
Yes, Linda, I did that on purpose. I can slow it down just a little bit. See how this works. But it's a 2-hour video, so I don't want to take 4 hours as I stop and go. But we might even take up to 3. I don't know.
Goes back into the organization. Well, part of this religious organization is they have their own little communal farm where they have all this produce and everything they provide for a restaurant. And the restaurant is a 508 C.O.W.A.R.D. restaurant for the purposes of making income for the religious organization, this so-called cult. Now, under this undercover investigation that he did, he ended up also getting a job at the restaurant. Then he turned around and got a bunch of his friends together after he found out how the LLC here worked. And that's what he used to take over and overthrow the restaurant. That's literally what these people did. So it's very important, again, to understand how an LLC operates. You guys feel free to stop me anytime.
Yeah, I got a question. That made me come up with a question. So let me get straight. Are you saying that this gentleman or individual has the ability to overthrow and take ownership of an LLC?
Not singularly by himself, but while he started out singularly by himself, undercover and working on the farm and in this restaurant, he found out that the restaurant is run as an LLC, and they supposedly protect themselves by the ownership structure. That each one of them is an owner, and you have to be able to beat them by a majority vote. Like I said, this is a small religious organization, and all this guy had to do was come up with enough people that this religious organization, in their greed, in order to increase their numbers, increased it by enough people that were on his side already, and then they had their first meeting, and they all voted the other employees out.
Real story.
Yeah, they had they ended up with he ended up with enough people that went and got hired at this restaurant, and to such a point that they ended up with the majority vote and just voted the other people out, which corporate law says you can do that. Greetings, Imperium Privatus. How you doing?
Doing great. Are we talking about private LLCs, or is this more of a public?
Yeah, well, both. We're trying to discern the fact that a lot of these are being registered as public LLCs, and I don't think that's proper. Whereas Nubs is a sole proprietor type guy and has his set up as an LLC, isn't satisfied, so he wants to change to something else. And this is where I think we're supposed to take on the private placement. It's kind of like the in-between for a merger. You have to show that you can take control through a limited liability corporation, and then show that you're studied and worthy to go forth as a company in private with a indemnification. And yes, he needs a trust.
I was about to say that. That you need to be registered to some private trust, right? That kind of feels, we're talking about commerce, and I guess the picture of that is everything is on the ocean, right? And you need to lay some type of foundational ship, and these ships are the trusts, and everything is going on the trust.
Right, we've been displaced from the trust as beneficiaries, as if though we've been removed off the land, and now we're dealing in commerce as trustees, and we have to sign all these documents with liability. And that's where you return prodigal son back to the estate, which is the land, recognizing that you're the king, you're under common law, and that you need equity above all else, and that takes the ability, the plenipotentiary powers, to manage all of your affairs, and that takes a studying to show yourself worthy and proved. Until you can do that, they're going to be able to see where you can't conduct your affairs because you're still dependent upon their services as a benefit, and claiming that you're a benefit and not or beneficiary, but not expressing that you're not a trustee in the proper manner, and that's settlement. The beneficiary can control and settle the trust, and that's what they need to do.
Would the proper setup then be a private LLC as a pass-through to an unincorporated business trust?
Well, it's like Tribe says, the trust owns the LLC.
Correct.
So it's a matter of expressing the trust and then letting them know, again, giving them first duty of law is legal notice that under that private trust, you're operating a limited liability corporation, and here's the indemnification agreement for that limited liability. That's what limits the liability, is you're coming forth with an indemnification.
Or real question, is this how Jackstown actually got like fucked up? Is this why the I had to, Wizard. I had to.
All right, let's get into it here.
My friends and I legally overthrew a restaurant that uses child labor and is run by an evil cult. Can you speak again? Let me get detained, okay? Yes, I used their own legal loophole against them, making me the legal owner of this restaurant now. So first, we fired all the cult members. And now, we can literally do whatever we want with the place. Before you click away from the video, because you don't believe me, we actually pulled this off. And
in such a trust where you're a sole proprietor, like in my situation where it's just me and my companion, I'm sole proprietor of mine, she's sole proprietor of hers, but we accept each other as beneficiaries and trustees in accordance to that relationship. So as a trustee, I'm actually the executive. I'm the one that executes everything.
Hey, Keith, and instead of a sole proprietor, could you put in a 508?
No, it's actually a 509, as I've expressed before, and that's 26 U.S.C. 509 is a private foundation. And under 26 CFR 1-508.1, subsection 3, they talk about the presumption of private foundation. And when you read that, it shows that there's already a presumption of a private foundation if you just simply don't communicate with them. So that if somebody comes along and calls them up and they ask if they're aware of this firm operating as Keith Little and they don't have any records of it, it's recognized already as a private foundation by a presumption. But that's the problem with the Social Security. That changes that presumption and lays a fact on the record that was presumed, and it's false. It's inauthentic. You're not of the military, you're not a taxpayer, you're not a citizen, you're not a resident. And again, we've got to recognize the record for what it is, and that's where it's aired. It's supposed to have integrity. Fix that record. The entire record needs to be dismissed as a matter of having an official duty to the public in that capacity. You don't. So it's a reversion back to the absolute private estate, which is the real party in interest. Nobody's coming forth and notifying them that they're the real party in interest as the beneficiary. You accept the property that was gifted, the grant, inauthentically, but it's got a seal on it under full faith and credit. So now you put the credit to it. It was a gift, and as a gift from her, you're supposed to double under her. That's as simple as I see it.
Okay.
Everything in the video
is a ecclesiastical organization. Would that be correct?
Well, either way, it's a private foundation, and that you can distinguish it any way you want. You can distinguish it as a spiritual temple, educational learning center, a medicinal or health center, a natural sciences or natural arts center, anything that's private or not for profit, but as an actual public service. See, that's your true public service, and you don't do it for charge. You can do it for an exchange of some sort, but it can't be demanded in dollar for dollar.
we think was 100% legal. So let's just get right to it. Here's how I pulled it off. First, I spent 3 weeks undercover in a cult called the 12 Tribes doing investigative journalism work with secret cameras. This cult owns a restaurant as a recruiting device called the Yellow Deli. And while I was working undercover, the first thing I discovered is that this restaurant doesn't pay their employees. They only use slave labor. And believe it or not, using slave labor is actually illegal under the California Minimum Wage Act. So I was curious and asked these guys what loophole they use to get away with this.
This restaurant ever run into problems with minimum wage issues since someone gets paid here? Oh. So
Yeah, see, so everyone that works here is an owner. So check this out. So right now they're working at the restaurant and they tending the farm and everything and other times and stuff. And all these people that are doing this, in those capacities, they are trustees. But they're in that capacity as trustees deemed to be owners. And in that capacity as trustees and owners making not necessarily profit, but expanding their goals and being able to take on more employees or owners, they absolutely have to have something coming back in return to keep them in sustenance. That's their benefit. So they actually play all 3 parts. Again, it's actually 6 parts. Grantor, grantee, trustor, trustee, beneficiary, benefactor.
See, everybody who works here as an LLC is a co-owner.
Just got to know when to wear the different hats.
So you get an equal share of everything. This is the communal aspect of this religious thing that he's calling a cult. It's not actually slave labor. It's just a way to avoid the labor laws of having to pay, quote, employees, quote, wages for, quote, income, because that's not how they're operating. So it's
and then have to pay taxes on it. See, in this manner, you don't have to pay taxes. That's what is a tax but a liability? It's a levy. It's a lien, saying that there's some kind of liability.
Totally legit. That's how the law is structured. But watch what happens. Now that he knows how they're able to protect themselves, now he knows how to take them apart. Like I said, majority vote.
This is why it's so important to protect that trust by knowing how that trust is supposed to be established. And if you can establish that trust and protect it yourself, again, under that sole proprietor, that's the true form of self-government. You don't have to delegate authority to an accountant. You don't have to delegate authority to a tax agent. You don't have to delegate authority to a marketer. You don't have to delegate. You do all of that yourself.
Since I'm working here? Oh, really?
Jack of all trades, master of none. You know enough about everything that you can do what you need to express that trust and protect it.
Does that mean they don't pay taxes?
Most of them don't, yes. It's a tax shelter. A lot of LLCs, the only taxes they pay are excise taxes. Now watch it. Listen to what he says. That way nobody can just take over the restaurant. You have to win by half. See, they're under the assumption that it keeps the deli safe. But again, if you don't know what you're doing, you ruin that safety net by hiring too many people through this LLC that have a different view and come in and take over, because that's literally what happened. If you don't understand how the voting majority works in an LLC and you hire a bunch of people that then turn around, come in and overvote you in your own majority vote system, you just screwed yourself. This is called being savvy in business.
And they take over all them assets too.
Now it's time to use their cool loophole against them. So
private business.
Say what?
Why would there be a need to pay excise taxes if we're in the private?
On their equipment and stuff, they can't produce their own equipment and everything, and there's an excise tax on that. Excise tax on services for people that.
Correct.
A what?
You can be leasing the equipment, couldn't you? Through some type of unincorporated trust to the LLC. So then that would.
Oh, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can, but it goes to the same thing. Why would you do a lease if you can own it? See, the lease is again, if you're not signing it right, which means that if you fall into that lease installment plan, you've probably done something wrong. If you're financing it, if you're the one settling it, and you do that first, then why do you need an installment plan?
I guess it would be for liability. I guess that's why they do a lot of it. So
and again, if you're doing it on credit, if you're doing it on credit, then why are you setting up for future payments? See? If you use a credit device to obtain money, property, labor, or services on credit, why are you using money? Why are you making payments? The payment is that you financed it, meaning you settled it because you did it on credit, and all you have to do is access the credits and make it understood that customer agrees to make third-party payment as beneficiary, so long as it's understood that the credit is given to the customer's account. Just have to learn this simple language. And it's trust law language. And I'll be darned if I, nope, it's still there. Okay.
Here's the plan. Get a large group of my friends to all get hired by this restaurant, making them actual legal owners of the Yellow Deli. When the next employee meeting happens, we do a group vote to fire all the other employees, which according to their own LLC, you need to win by majority vote to pass any business decisions. Now that they're all fired, we're the only owners left, which means looks like we own the restaurant now. And as
You got a majority vote, and the majority vote is to fire the minority. Guess what? That changes the ownership. And legally, that's how this shit works. I hope you're paying attention, folks. This is very risky business.
And that's even what they do in the corporate mergers. Those are actually takeovers. And what they do is, by competition and marketing and stuff like that, they can cause the loss of income for a competitor that's smaller than them, and then just go in and buy them out in a merger. Hey, they're failing. They're going to go into debt. We're going to help save them, but we now control it. It's a way of allowing employees to keep their job, because in those kind of situations, the employees don't have ownership. Oops, did they give up their rights, titles, and interest to the name? Yeah, absolutely.
as owners of the restaurant, we're going to rebrand the place. First off, there's going to be no more child abuse, no more child labor, and the new restaurant's going to stop praising things like slavery and Hitler. But we got to take over the restaurant first, so time to take over the restaurant. Okay, guys, some of you guys may die. That's a sacrifice that we're all willing to make to take this evil cult down. You guys ready for this? Yeah! 1, 2, 3, So you guys are definitely thinking right now, Ben, what the heck are you thinking? I mean, you don't just expect that this restaurant's just going to hire your entire group of friends on the spot, do you? Well, that's where I'm 6 steps ahead, because while I was still undercover infiltrating this cult, I found out about their main prophecy, which they actually believe that 144,000 virgins are going to just show up to their cult one day. I assume this is how they expect the virgins to show up, and then they're going to like sacrifice them. It's the end of the world or whatever. So I asked if
This is very strange and reminiscent of Jackstown. Just saying.
This is fucking epic, yo.
This is the epitome of using somebody else's weakness against them. And that's why I urge everybody, don't believe me, don't believe your neighbor, don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Learn how to do your research so you know, because this is what happens. You're able to take control of the things that you want to or need to. You learn how to manipulate things, and that's where the power is. Now, I don't suggest you do it for ill means. That's for damn sure.
few of the members. Once all these virgins show up, are they just automatically hired at the restaurant? Like, do they just get a job?
What would happen if like 40 people randomly just showed up at the deli and we're like, we're ready to work? Would you guys be able to like have work for the people? No. Because that's going to happen someday, right? It's going to be crowded with people. It's slow now, but it's going to get like really fast really soon.
Yep.
See, he's building them up and pushing their own dream for them that, hey, one day it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You're all of a sudden going to have people walking in these doors realizing they've made mistakes and that you guys are right. And they're yeah, we know it's going to happen, thousands at some point.
That's the main prophecy that this restaurant believes in. So I guess if all my friends knock on their door just pretending to be virgins, they're just going to think that their prophecy is finally coming true. So check it out. We're entering as the San Diego Virgin Club. That's why we all just chanted virgins before. So Danny, Lydia, and I hid on the outside while everyone else walking through the back employee entrance.
They were so greedy, they didn't even research San Diego Virgins Club.
Oh, yeah. Who brought you? Oh, we're with the. Oh, wow.
We're with the San Diego Virgin Club. Oh, wow.
I think you're trying to troll us, Wizard.
Well,
I wouldn't troll you.
This is clearly
Jackstown. No, you're my favorite little grunions.
I do not do a podcast, UFC event. I don't do anything without using it.
I knew it was fucking Jackstown. He's a spokesman.
They want to help out. Yeah, we definitely are going to do that. We got tables that we got gonna have to seat. The sandwich bar probably could use some help. You get a crew going on dishes. Maybe a crew can start
What this restaurant didn't know is that my friends are some of the hardest workers out there. They were sweeping, mopping, cleaning the bathroom, doing dishes, setting tables, moving boxes from one place to put them in another place. They were doing
They were investing. See, this is their investment into the LLC. Their sweat, equity, labor. That's all it took. Again, I don't pose that you do this stuff for nefarious reasons. That would be a shame.
Lots of work. The only downside is nobody got paid for the hard work they were doing. It's okay. They only didn't get paid because they're now official owners of this restaurant.
It's going way too well.
Wait, really?
So how is it they are official owners of the restaurant, guys? How does that work? Do you know?
Because they're actively working without taking an income. And
So they're investing their labor.
Yep.
And that can't be converted to a commodity, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
There you go. That's your investment. That's your asset. Your asset is the physical labor that you put into it, the effort that you put into it, your maintenance, your intent to help it prosper and be abundant. And that's exactly the principle these guys are using to take over this LLC, because they see it as a cult that's trying to take advantage of people. Like you mentioned, the wage law. But again, that's a matter of your objective or subjective views on how that works. Because remember, these people didn't join that cult to be part of the cult. They joined the cult to shut the restaurant down. That was the point of entrance for people to join the cult. So they were shutting down the restaurant to cut down the cult. That's their intent and purpose. That's obvious. So we have to keep that in mind.
No, wait, guys. What if it's a trap?
But it wasn't a trap. Or maybe it was, I don't know. Either way, if it was a trap, my friends successfully all became owners, and the plan was going great until... So these virgin friends of mine told the staff that they met a guy named Rovak.
Let me just call her boss real quick.
So now they want to call him to verify that these are actual real virgins and not some secret group in disguise trying to infiltrate them.
I think we might be. They're calling him right now.
And my friends didn't care and decided to keep working. And I guess the guy named Rovak told them that he didn't send a group of virgins here. So now this restaurant's wondering, who sent us a giant group of virgins?
You know Ben and Dan? They used to help out here.
Have not a clue,
Met Ben and Dan?
but their dream is so hard. They're practically coming with all the help.
I think at this point it's pretty obvious that Danny and I are the ones behind this fake group of virgins. But for some reason...
So now they did research and found out they weren't sent by the guy, but yet again, like I said, their faith and hope is so great that they still believe that these people are virgins and their prophecy is being fulfilled.
And they're still allowing all my friends to continue working for them.
If we can all gather around and grab a bag, that'd be great.
So it's back to work again, outside, picking up trash.
If they ever show up, just have to say hi to Ben again.
Not only they are improving the inside, but they're also improving the outside equity.
Correct. That's a large
Somehow,
part of what these,
even with them knowing
realize.
who we were, all of my friends became legal owners of this restaurant and decided to participate in the next employee group meeting.
I think it's time that we have new changes, right? So no more.
An important aspect about, like I said, the LLCs and the way they operate, what Nubs just mentioned as outside equity, going out along the parking lot and the property and making sure it's maintained properly. And a lot of these LLCs are in a position that they can help out the communities in a greater capacity than a corporate entity because of that. They can help show the rest of the community how to run a business like that without being incorporated in the state. And that's what the LLC is. That you're going to be filing certain documents, but actually what it's doing is it's going to limit you on the filings that you have to make, the records that you have to keep. Like I said earlier, most of them don't pay any taxes except excise taxes, things like that. So it's a matter of knowing how that structure works and using it for its benefit. Like I said here, these guys are in fact actually using it for what they deem as a benefit. But again, we've got to remember that's a one-sided benefit because they're opposing an ideology as detrimental, where we really can't see if it's detrimental. It just goes against the grain of what they're thinking. That's why they call it a cult. It's a projection. So we got to keep that in mind.
Hey, Keith, I have a question.
No more
These private LLCs servicing the public, or is there some type of
absolutely? That's what they're doing here. They're using a private LLC to serve the public as a restaurant.
Okay, so there's no private membership barrier in between.
No, it's a private membership, but they serve the public.
What do you mean by there's a private membership?
They're private owners.
But there's no private membership in order to get into the restaurant, correct?
Well, they're not going to let you in. They're not going to let you in if you don't fulfill certain criteria. They have their own setup. It's an LLC, and the employees vote on whether to let these people in. They obviously voted yes. That's a private membership.
And the people that just got into or like the regular service, is it kind of like a golf course, a private golf course, where you need to apply for membership in order to.
Well, I don't know how a private golf course would work on an LLC, except to trade the membership for caretaking of the field, and then of course you would be able to just like a restaurant sell the use of the golf course for people that want to play golf, but you wouldn't make any paychecks.
Okay, thank you.
And again, that's a matter of converting those definitive paper forms into credits by placing them as special deposits. This is what we pulled in using your federal fiat through the public service that we provided. And because we are indemnified, we're returning these for redemption in form of credits. Now all we do is put out credits. And again, that's that customer agrees to make third-party payment as beneficiary, so long as it's understood that credit is given to the customer's account. So as an LLC, they're just growing all the credits, and in the meantime, they get to use those credits so long as they make that determination of returning those credits on those purchases. Again, this is an aspect I don't think a lot of LLCs are following, though. I don't know too many people that really comprehend the credit system the way I do, and that's the hard part about getting other people to do so. I can explain it to you, but I can't comprehend it for you.
I think it's only the banks that probably really understand the credit system, if not the top officials at semi-financial.
Right. Those that deal most closely with the trust, which would be the bankers. Bankers can operate trusts.
People hating Jews. We are a community that loves everyone. Right? Yes, exactly. It is our restaurant. We're basically all owners, right? Yeah. Hoorah! 3, 1, 2, 3. Hoorah! All right, guys. Anyway, so now that we're all owners, I think that we should probably fire everyone here, right? I think so. It's majority vote. Yeah. I feel like it's 15 of us. All in favor of us being owners and nobody else? Say aye. Aye.
I think it was like 15 of them and 13 of the others. So they had a majority vote, no matter how you looked at it. But again, they went in there with the intent of overthrowing this LLC as such. And that's why I say it's important to realize the number game. Particularly in recent events, we heard about people that are supposedly buying substance stuff and what good does it do with the algorithms and stuff, and that's why we're having problems with people coming in and striking channels and getting all aggressive and stuff. It's really not the venue for it, but it's a similarity that I can use to kind of analyze what's going on. And it happens in all worlds, all venues. And that's what we experience here with the, like I said, the panels and all the raucous and drama. It's simply other people that are blatantly trying to tell you they're trying to take over. Take over what?
That's because there's no difference between one and the other, Wizard. It's just the means in which things are done and the medium in which things are done in. But there's no difference between drywall and concrete. It's all the same shit. It's all building.
Well, no, I'm talking about the intents and purposes. See, in this metaverse here, it's a psychological universe where that's all it really is. There isn't anything really tangible about it except for you pressing the keyboard keys. Other than that, it still has its physical effects on the other end sometimes, like particularly when you order something online. Yeah, you're dealing with a psychological metaverse that isn't real, but at the same time, it's used to create or move real things. So it does have those kind of effects. And so we've got to be careful again.
Just like your own psychology, your own mind. You don't need the internet to move things. You have your thoughts. And it's the conveyance of your thoughts through this metaverse that does that moving. It's just another way to convey thoughts. And in that, you can convey them over longer distances instead of through the mail or something like that. Progress in technology has brought us to a great point in life, and that is that this internet is one of the greatest libraries of all time. So rather than using it just to project things forward, you should be learning how to learn from it. Again, don't believe me, don't believe your neighbor, don't believe the government. Crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. And this, again, is one of the greatest research libraries there is.
When we're dealing with these metaverse panels and channels and social sites and stuff, and all the copyright striking and anger and threats and all that, it's merely a matter of somebody else trying to take over your psychological aspects by you showing some kind of control or hierarchy system in a psychological universe that That's all it is. It's intangible. There is no control in this metaverse except your own. You cannot control other people. You tend to think you are because you can manipulate them, but that's because of their own weakness. That isn't because you can control them.
Nobody could believe it, but my friends had just legally overthrown the Yellow Deli restaurant. This wasn't just a proud moment for us. This is so much more than that. We're going to rebrand this place from an evil cult to the best restaurant ever. Let's go.
I think this is going to work out well.
First, we're going to hang up 2 signs I had custom made by Danny's mom. A grand reopening sign, and another that says, not a cult anymore, because cults suck.
We're rebranding this. Should we hang this up?
Time to go down. You guys are probably going to get picked up for trespassing.
It was going amazing, but then, out of nowhere, one of the previous owners, who was super angry that he just got fired, ripped down our sign.
That guy doesn't even work here. He's trying to tell us how to do our job.
You guys take off.
Do you know
I own the place.
You own the place?
We're all owners, are we?
Yeah, so let's do it. Yeah.
This is the real world where it's survival of the fittest. All right? So you want to challenge me?
No, it's not the real world where it's survival of the fittest. It's an LLC in the legal world where they just overthrew your ass because you're dumb. That's what it is, folks.
Dumb and greedy.
That's fine. We do that.
But fighting to win ownership of the restaurant is not how the Yellow Deli's LLC works. It works by majority vote, and we have the majority.
Well, we can do an employee group vote. I say the fairest way is we should have an employee group vote to see if we should hang these back up. And majority votes.
Yeah, I'm
It looks like you should have voted. So let's rebrand. Let's do it.
You're about to get rebranded.
Let's rebrand.
You get your fucking cheap deal.
Yeah.
And see these virgins, as so-called, are in contact with an attorney that's helping them out as well. You know, giving them information and the aspect of how this actually works.
You can't be doing that, man. You cannot be doing that.
Yeah, see, now they're going hands-on, and that you can't.
And that's a criminal act in a civil action. Even the police would tell you it's a civil action.
Again, folks, this is a civil issue. If they want to do anything about it, like I said, that's an LLC, and they came in and overtook it through that LLC voting thing. And again, that's the civil aspect that allowed them to take over the LLC. So,
and this is where, since I've done my research beyond this, and I'm talking about that indemnification stuff, this is where I think a lot of the LLCs are missing out, because I don't believe that they have that indemnification sitting there to qualify that limited liability company. I think they may have surety bonds or an insurance thing somewhere that places them as sureties. Because remember, even as that LLC, without being placed in the private, is known as a partnership with the United States, a United States business. That record has to be reconciled for what it is, an inauthentic claim of such a United States business, and now recognized in the private, reconciled and resurrected in a merger, recognized as the Keith Orland Little Trust, a private trust.
And Keith, you said the private LLCs are non-registered, correct?
Correct, because it's in a private placement with an indemnification.
Okay. Because I know if it was registered through the statutes, usually it's going to direct the LLC to have some type of insurance, and that would be acting in the.
Well, the indemnification, the indemnification is registered with the SEC, like I showed last Sunday, and then the SEC gives you a certificate, certifies it. Okay, that's where the bond is established, with the registration of a Securities Exchange Commission as a private placement and not a public offering for sale of the warrant. So it's a private placement, and you keep the warrant.
It remains a civil aspect. When you start putting your hands on people, now it becomes a criminal aspect.
You literally just kicked the owner out of his own restaurant. Yeah, so as you can see, these previous employees are not taking it the best that they just got fired.
You don't like our restaurant, you have to eat here.
So they're going to start to take their anger out in what I think are some pretty unreasonable ways.
Don't fucking touch me. Don't fucking touch me, all right?
Pause for a second. We have to go back. I mean, she bumps into me, but we'll let her keep playing.
Don't fucking touch me. Don't fucking touch me, all right?
Wait.
Don't fucking touch me.
Actually, I got it on full.
This is my first time ever owning a restaurant, and I guess I've never had to deal with angry customers before. And it's starting to look like these two angry customers are starting to become a danger to some of the other customers in our restaurant. So hopefully the cops come soon and can deal with this.
Well, let's go back up and put the things back up.
Damn, I hate commercials.
Then the cops finally showed up, thank God. Finally, they can deal with this delusional customer and the physical assault that took place.
We had a customer at our restaurant basically just come and start pushing us and yell deli. Okay, are you working?
Now, this is interesting how the police deal with this. These are sheriffs. And like I said, it remains a civil issue. And yet they want to start out as a criminal issue and a criminal issue against the new owners because they don't understand civil law. And they blatantly say so. Pay attention, listen up.
Wouldn't that be out of jurisdiction?
Absolutely.
And that would be then a civil rights violation on the police department as well.
Absolutely.
Or not to mention other.
And that's because it would be violation through interference with a private contract. Again, it's a civil issue. They have to let the courts do it. They can't interfere with the private contract. So it's got to be taken to court to make sure that it's valid. That's where they lose. It was valid.
We're owners of this restaurant, and we had a customer basically come up and start pushing us. I reckon not anyone service. Like if he's a paying customer and he wants to eat at our restaurant, like of course we'll serve him. But it was just a little rude.
When is the last time you worked?
The last time I worked, like today.
Because we come here all the time. I've never seen you.
You've never seen me?
The person that I talked to, I see.
Well, I'm always.
Pay attention here. Aspects of incentive and bias come creeping in right here. In case you didn't notice, he said, we come here all the time. We know everybody. When's the last time you worked here? We had never seen you here before. Sounds like they're looking for, or receive already preferential treatment. So again, pay attention.
Back in the kitchen, so that's why you don't see me normally.
So
Yeah.
They're saying you guys don't work here.
Oh,
Okay. So unless you can show me any type of documentation.
yeah, we can.
You work here.
We can pull up the documentation
And he's going to show them the legal documentation.
stuff, but
So here's where I'm coming from.
we have all the legal documentation.
We come here all the time. Right?
Greetings, Mitchell. How you doing tonight, brother?
Hey, man. I got nothing to add. I'm just getting here. Thanks for having me. I'm just learning.
You bet. Always appreciate you, man. Feel free to speak up anytime.
Thank you. Peace.
Like come here a lot. I've never seen you.
Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen you.
Well, let's do them back in the kitchen. Yeah.
I've never seen you.
This cop's wrong. I have video evidence to prove it. I have video evidence of all of us working. The cop's going to side with the fired employees because the employees that we just fired give all police officers free food. Yeah, they're pretty much bribing the cops. That's not evidence that you just come here all the time. It should be evidence if I show you.
It's like practicing law without a license, making legal determinations.
Well, right. Legal determinations that interfere with a private contract, and he's now saying he doesn't want to look at it. You have to. It's a civil issue, and he's got evidence, and you're violating the privity of that contract. You can't do that.
The person that works here says you don't work here.
No,
The person that works here says you don't work here. He's verifying himself that he does work here. And he's trying to explain to him that what they did was perfectly legal and that they fired the other employees. And that seems to be a civil issue. And the officer doesn't seem to think so. He should have already been done and over with.
See,
no, I'm saying that he doesn't work here.
See, they amended the contract that all the employees worked under by a vote. And it was perfectly lawful. That's the law of those contracts of LLCs.
Saying that he works here. And he's saying that you guys don't work here.
See, I'm saying that he works here, and they're saying that you don't work here. See, this guy doesn't know how to speak because he's saying that he knows things as if though he's a witness to the event. He can't say this guy doesn't work here, and so he doesn't. He says
he wasn't involved in the private contract. That was amended by vote, legally and lawfully.
He knows these other people work here because he's seen them before and doesn't know that they've been fired, even though this guy just told him they've been fired, and then says, and they say, you don't work here.
Not only
When
that,
that's
but
a
with
lie.
that sheriff's department,
When that's a lie, and they have evidence that they work there, and all the others, if you ever put them on a stand, they would have to say, yes, they came into work and we put them to work. That's working there. Go ahead now.
fired tonight. How do you know?
The worker says he doesn't want your group here.
But we're owners of the restaurant, though.
You can't show me any proof that.
Yeah, I will. I can.
You can't show me any proof. Yeah, I can. I will. Watch. Just how dumb these people are.
I can pull it up. Written in the LLC.
What's the LLC?
Limited liability company. I mean, these police officers are really just doing whatever they can to not look at the LLC. Can we pull the LLC?
Yeah, it's a private contract. Limited liability company in private contract.
No, that is, but
this might be a conspiracy here. But he might just be making that up, so he doesn't have to look at the proof that's on my phone.
What you're talking about so far, you have no proof of what you're of anything.
Can I show you proof then?
no, I'm not sure.
So
We have no proof of what you're doing. Can I show you proof? No, I'm not an attorney.
So since when did it take an attorney to examine proof when the police are the ones that are supposed to investigate it, and that's what they're supposed to be looking for is proof? These people are total morons.
That's why you're there, is to investigate, to get proof. No, I'm not an attorney. You see how dumb this shit is?
how am I supposed to prove that I work here then if the only thing that you're willing to go off is your opinion and the evidence you keep asking for, you're not going to look at it? I would check what the LLC. No, I don't want to. So it's getting to the point where I'm like, okay, cops, you asked for all the proof. I'm like, just try and show it to you. You don't read it. So I'm just going to try and explain to you guys the proof as best as I can. Written in the LLC and all the paperwork, which is verifiable online. You can look up on your phone if you want. It says that everyone that works a shift here is considered an owner of the restaurant. So we have all worked here. In the LLC also says group decisions are made on majority vote. So if you want to fire an employee, it has to be on majority vote. So we are all owners of the restaurant and we outvoted to fire all of the current members. And we had a group meeting. It legally happened. And they have all been fired tonight. Now that the cops know that my friends and I legally own this restaurant, they don't know how to respond back. So they do a little cop group meeting.
The only reason why we're here is there's a group call.
There's a group call?
There's a group call saying that you guys are taking over the business. That's why you have some.
Oh, well, yeah, we're taking it over, but we did it legally.
You've worked for the LLC.
Since June, yes.
As an employee?
Yes. And we have all video evidence of it. Now the cop group meeting's done.
I guess you guys are here to kind of take over the deli.
We did everything legally. We have documentation of everything that happened.
I don't care about that right now. See, you can tell them the law and they still don't care.
We have evidence of everything, or evidence, legal documentation of everything. We don't care. That's how ignorant these people are.
Officers be implemented.
You're breaking up, brother. You need to go back to the living room.
Okay, so here's my understanding of what I'm seeing right now is that they have video evidence of a cop going against the law, which opens the police department for I can't say that damn word.
Opens them for a claim against their surety.
I can't. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it opens them up to a civil suit for a lot of things, depending on what they do. You know, if they would have arrested the people or whatever, that would have been possible. Am I back? Okay, yeah, if they'd have gone through and arrested people, they could be open to possible lawsuits of kidnapping, extortion, all kinds of things.
Ever call a supervisor?
Like they mentioned, they get free.
Did they what?
Did they ever call a supervisor for that interaction right there?
I don't think so. We'll find out here.
Free sandwiches and stuff because of the old employees, and that's pretty much like a bribery setup. They've already been paid for the bribe. It's like a protection racket, you know. So yeah, we come here all the time. Yeah, all the time, getting free food from the local cult that has all kinds of employees that are working for free. So yeah, you're going to get free food too, huh? You're going to protect them because they give you free food.
And that's
let's get back at it.
And like I mentioned earlier, these guys are claiming that this is a cult and dealing in trafficking and all kinds of stuff. And here we have officers of the law that are supporting them to the hilt. What do you think's really going on?
We know
we have law
enforcement officers come here, right? So we do have a working relationship with the people that do work here currently. All right, but you guys coming in here, the only thing you're going to find yourself doing is getting arrested if they want prosecution for you.
Because you have a relationship with them?
I've never seen them. I've been here multiple times.
Well, because I was in the kitchen. Stu doesn't care about the evidence. He just cares about his personal relationship with them, his free food. So you're going to let them refuse to get fired by the owners of the restaurant because you have a relationship, a personal relationship?
That's the interpret it, yes.
Theoretically.
If that's how you want to interpret it, yes. He's willing to accept that as the interpretation. That you're willing to take a bribe. You're willing to take a bribe. All right, hold on, guys. Sans medic. You know, this again proves your honor. So I'd rather you just leave like the coward you are. But the link is down there. Let me put it down there again for you, brother, so you can feel free to come on up.
Oh, so this is news to me. I'm Canadian now? Oh, wow.
No, I think he was talking about nubs. but it doesn't matter. See, that's a point where people start slinging ad hominems. And again, like I said, this is just a psychological metaverse, and it has no effect if you don't let it have any effect. So again, the link is down there. Come on up and let's talk about it. Otherwise, we'll let YouTube and StreamYard know you're out here trying to incite, and that's in the language. So anyway, let's get back to it. Please excuse the disruption. I doubt he'll show up. Go ahead, Daniel.
I was just saying he doesn't have cojones. He won't come up.
Nah.
If I were to walk back onto the restaurant that I'm an owner of, you would arrest me.
I don't work theoretically.
So
it would be a citizen's arrest right now.
I mean, it just kind of hurts because like we're the owner of this restaurant now, and we fired them, and it's like.
Do you have your ID with you?
I mean, the more the conversation went on, the more the cops would just say the stupidest things, just to, I don't know, just make them look right and me look wrong, I guess. Reckless Ben, R-E-C-K.
Oh, you got the W.
No, reckless is spelled without a W.
Reckless?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
No, there's a W.
There is?
Yeah.
He's pretty sure that it's W-R-E-C-K because that's what he's used to. But when you learn how to name yourself, you can spell it any fucking way you want. And watch what happens here. He gets wrecked.
See, this is that Dunning-Kruger effect. They both ganged up on him and said, Reckless? No, it's got a W in it. Both of them confirmed, yeah, it's got a W in it. Reckless Ben is his name that he created for his YouTube channel. If he created it, it's his spelling. Let me tell you how I spell Noel. J-K-M-N-O. And how do you spell Noel with Noel? J-K-M-N-O. There's Noel there. It's called reading between the lines. It's called being creative. It's called coining your words or pursing your lips. It's called naming yourself and not subjecting yourself to somebody else's idiocracies.
I'm pretty sure I have to do some homework on my name. Wait, let's look it up. Reckless. Let's see. Yeah, see, no W.
Oh,
yeah, finally, the first proof this guy's looked at. Am I on the sidewalk right now, or?
You just can't block the sidewalk.
Am I blocking it?
Wrecked.
You guys are going to end up blocking it. Oh, you can make that premonition? You're a clairvoyant? This is fucking total ironic idiocy. These people think they're smart, and they say the stupidest shit.
We would just have to sue them. That's the only way to resolve this is for us to sue them. So for the people who think that they still own the Yellow Deli, I'm suing you guys because the rules are the rules. If they weren't the rules, that would mean that you would have to pay your employees the amount you owe them, which I actually calculated. Since opening in 2010, your employees would have worked a combined 800,000 hours, which minimum wage is over $12 million. I know you can't afford to pay $12 million. That's what you would have to do if the loophole I used on you guys didn't work. So if the loophole does work, what you can't afford to do is just admit that I found a flaw in your loophole. So when I walk into my restaurant next time, you won't be violent towards me and you won't call the cops on me because we are the legal owners of this restaurant now. So let's rebrand our restaurant.
Interesting, huh?
Part two.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting because it brings up a situation. Like I said, if they're going to claim like the one guy did, the big burly guy with the tattoos on his face and shit, he claimed to be the owner. Now, if he's going to claim to be the owner, like he was pointing out, then he's got to be paying wages. And if he's not paying wages, then he's been violating his employees, and they got to go back and calculate how much he owes in employees. So you're either a boss and own it as a corporation, or you're a co-owner in an LLC where everybody gets a vote, and you voted by majority like the LLC was written up. And like I said, there's different ways to write up your LLCs, and you can actually be
You guys understand how that worked? Okay, so if you've got an LLC, you have a voting power. Whereas if you've got a corporation, it's in the executive power. What's the United States?
Corporation.
So what's your best advantage against a corporation is an LLC, sole proprietor, where you have 100% vote. You have all control and you get to settle all matters. What's that sound like?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Congress and LLC? Because it has members?
No, Congress is the representation of the corporate entity. See, they're filling offices for emoluments. That's not a republic. That's the public. That's the democracy. That's not the independent guy that knows how to govern himself and keeps an oversight over Congress by filling it with people that don't take emoluments. They do it as part of their public service to make sure that the words in the documents are warranted as true and correct. That's what grant means. Assure, promise, will, and it's to the truth and correctness of it. I assure you, it's true. That's different than ensure and insure.
Mm.
Remember, language comes in a trinity as well, folks.
Hey,
LLC, but hire a.
Sorry, before you go on, there was when I was working closely with the American State Assemblies, a common process, I believe it was Minnesota or something, people would do LLCs, doing business as, all their, all these, corruptions on their names, so that way, I believe, my understanding, I never went through the process, but I believe that that idea, maybe you could kind of confirm this without conjecturing, but knowing the details, just taking it my word for it. But I think that's what they were doing, is they were taking control of, 100% control of those entities. I don't know if I'm explaining that right.
Well, yeah, and that's the government-controlled entity. This is the commercial and government entity, the cage number and all that. It's all an enumeration system. And what it does is, if you're going to do the doing business as LLC and then file a UCC1, what you've done is just solidified that partnership.
Okay.
And that's a public partnership. Whereas where you make public offerings, that if you do something wrong, they can hold you liable in a court of law, which is an administrative court, and come get your assets. Whereas in the private side, if you make a indemnification agreement and you say, that information that we say is warranted is held in that indemnification, you keep the warrant. You don't sell it. It's not for public sale. So you keep the warrant, and that's the thing that's offered as a private placement for indemnification. That's accessing the value in the instrument. It's not coming after your assets. The value in the instrument is what? Credit.
Got it. That's, great explanation. All right.
So practically what you're saying is not going and binding yourself into commerce or placing a shield and remaining in the private. Correct, Keith?
Yep, and that's the birth certificate, when you get that from the state, it's got a seal on it. And that seal shows full faith and credit of the United States. It's got the commander-in-chief signature on it, the governor, and his clerk, the state registrar. 2 signatures of co-trustees, and the holder in due course is the beneficiary. The name on it is the surety. The beneficiary grants as holder in due course enforcement of the instrument through indemnification, which is redemption. And what are we supposed to do according to Scripture? We are told that as strangers and sojourners with him, we grant a redemption to the land. We also grant a redemption to our brothers who have sold off their possessions.
God.
That's just correction of the record.
A management company that would hold all the assets separately and help prevent some kind of takeover like that. Of course, your management company would probably be a bit more business-minded, wanting to stay in business for themselves to be able to manage your affairs. So they damn well better be able to foresee any kind of takeovers like that and prevent them.
And that's why I say you need to learn how to manage your own assets. And again, you get to use your assets, but you've got certain documentation that proves they're your assets, property of the trust. And you can either name them or enumerate them or both.
So it's going to be interesting if it gets to, if it does go.
Or you can even do as Prince expressed and use symbols
through court. And what that $12 million process is going to look like. Are the court's going to look at it as though it's some kind of joke and these guys don't know what they're doing? Or are they going to look at the real aspect that they get their ass in trouble by pointing out the discrepancies in how that LLC is being run? I mean, truly, free burgers for the police officers. That's
Greetings,
at the
Robert.
minimum, even as a free hamburger.
How you doing tonight, brother?
Good. Yourself?
Good, good. Trying to stay out of the storms, that's for sure.
It can lead to RICO charges. These people are stupid when they're dealing with 508C1Ds. Those are tax corporations, no matter how you look at it. You're dealing with financial instruments, and that could very well lead to, like I said, RICO. It's a very, very slippery step when you think about limited liability and what that liability really is. The liability is that you are the ones that have to protect your ownership in it, each and every one of you. That's why it's important, if you're going to run a situation like that, you incorporate people that already know how LLCs run and help you up your game of the LLC. You learn how to hold escrow accounts for your property. Say an LLC like this that owns the restaurant or runs the restaurant and everything, but there's one member that they decide to vote out, and when they do so, he's the one that invested the equipment. So when they vote him out, he gets to take the equipment with him. So is it why?
Unless it comes to an equity matter and it would cost the LLC business, and in that case, there again would be a suit in court for recompense in a different form, a conversion of some sort. That's the only thing those courts are supposed to be doing, is converting for transfer of property that they're not supposed to be transferring. They're only supposed to be converting things to a credit system so that if a debt does is deemed actual and true, they can use the credit system to provide equity.
Eyes for a restaurant to vote out the guy that owns the grill and the dishwasher and the dough mixers and all those things. You know, what are your considerations as a co-owner in that LLC? Because each one should be able to bring something different, you know, whether it be a skill or an actual asset in physical form or whatever, as part of their investment in that setup. So it's a really nice setup that you can use if you have people that are ingenious and know how to lock their own safety in it by not allowing those majority votes to get carried away like that. Each member has to be able to be competent of knowing how that LLC operates so that each one can keep a sharp eye out for those situations.
This is why I harp about this corporate structure and everything, and people becoming professionals and being lineated in their talents to one type of thing. Whereas the guy that is a jack of all trades and a master of none may not necessarily actually be a jack of all trades, but he's got a number of trades that he can perform. Whereas the next guy might have another set of numbered trades that he can perform. And in coming together in groups like that, we can form a greater society by understanding how this indemnification works. Again, if we're strangers and sojourners with him and we're bringing the word of truth, that itself is the indemnification, the grant of redemption to the land, bringing truth to the fact that nobody owns the land. It's not supposed to be sold forever, for it's his. So who the hell has the right to think that they can condemn land of its natural use, granted by him, created by him, or created by the creation, however you want to look at it? What gives anybody the right to condemn the land of its natural use so it can be used for commercial purposes? It just befuddles me. That just seems so odd.
Here's the question.
Go ahead.
You can answer that.
Says this is standard for every LLC. There are standards for every LLC, and those standards can vary according to how you structure your LLC. There are certain minimum requirements.
You don't have to have a voting majority. You could have a quorum of some sort.
And this is why I urge everybody to look them up, because your states may be different, but there are going to be varying standards that are going to be minimums. And you can have an LLC as a single man, but typically it's going to be looked at as a sole proprietorship. You have to make sure that it's recognized as an LLC. But typically an LLC is going to have multiple members.
And again, I think that
and they're members, not employees.
And again, I think that LLC is actually expressed in its true form in modern days as a indemnification by making that indemnification yourself, showing that your assets is where the credits are all derived to establish your LLC and not government funded. Again, that partnership, that's a government funding. That's an agreement to use their fiat system for your dependency. You have to change that. And the only way you can do that is by being dependent upon the assets. You have to know its true values, be able to write collateral documentation to express that value, stamps and other representatives of value. The indemnification is the ultimate expression of that value.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Okay, so say you work for a company that has this kind of business structure where you're the owner and you don't get paid. How would you go about paying your bills?
Well, that's through the that's what we're working on with the set off and discharge. Let me see if I can pull something.
And again, this is from a while back, so we're learning that it's not necessarily the set off and discharge, but the credit system and the fact that we cancel the debt. Full faith and credit of the United States is now equally considered. And since I don't have any debt, then it has to be a cancellation of their debt too. Equity, making all parties whole. And in order to make all parties whole, it's a matter of canceling the debt.
Something else.
If you want equity, you must first come with equity. So that means you have to recognize all the parties in interest. You're the real party in interest. Who are the others, and what are their interests? The United States happens to have the interest on the obligations and other securities, which includes all bonds.
Got it even. Yeah, I don't have it here.
All right, so say you get a letter from the IRS and you got to come in and you tell them that you are part owner of an LLC and you don't get paid. They're going to ask you, well, then how do you pay your bills?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. The restaurant makes money. They sell their food. That's how they pay their bills, but they don't get paid themselves as owners. That's one of the things is the organization owns the property where they do all their farming. That's where they have.
And this is where the credit union comes in. They can establish an account at a credit union through the trust. That credit union is where those credits are going to sit as part of that indemnification. Again, it's just a circulation of credits. The customer agrees to make third-party payment as beneficiary so long as it's understood that credit is given to the customer's account. So on special deposit of the definitive paper form, the credits will be transferred to my account. So the definitive paper form would be like the credit card. So I go to the store and I use the credit card, and the cashier gives me, or the clerk gives me, a receipt known as a cash item. On that receipt, it's going to say U.S. debit. I get to turn that in quarterly with all the rest of the receipts on a 1099-C as a cancellation of debt. I got the credits. So here's the receipts that show it came out as a U.S. debit and it needs to be canceled. I indemnified them. I got my credits back.
Have their housing, things, like that. And then they have the restaurant as a way to make money off of the produce that they provide from that farm. So they're able to convert their commodity to a service for the community, and in that service for the community, that itself is the commodity, is the bills of exchange that go across that counter.
So they're creating the commodities exchange with the very fact of creating one paper document, or however many it's going to take, as indemnification, so that no commodities on the other side are issued. It's a private placement. Nobody can take advantage of your manual labor now. That's why these LLCs are so unique. You can invest your manual labor and cut it off from the commodities exchange.
You're giving me an idea.
That way they can pay all their bills, and all that excess, it doesn't get spent. It goes back into the organization to purchase what it needs, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's clothes for the people, a mill to mill and grind their own wheats and stuff. You know, as they expand, they grow into doing more and more things. So instead of buying local bread from the local bakery, they're not.
And this is why it's pertinent not to get greedy. When you get greedy and start taking on excess that you shouldn't be, that's casting pearl before the swine.
They now start making their own bread for the restaurant. Instead of buying the meat from the local store or the butcher, they now have cows and sheep and goats and whatnot.
If in a commercial interest you act in haste and bring something about before it's ripe, you might think about the fruits of the poisonous tree. It's called the ripeness doctrine. You should learn about it and use it in your life. Go according to the seasons and according to patience and due diligence of knowing what you're doing, not in haste.
As they grow accordingly. Like I said before, you don't want to grow too fast because it can consume you, implode on you. What's the idea I gave you? Tell me. Yeah.
To take a page from the Great Wizard, close your lips and purse your words, or however you say it.
Coin your words or purse your lips.
I don't want to say it over broadcast it because I don't want my idea getting or possibly get ruined. But I'll type it out, or we can talk after.
All right. Greetings, King L Bay. How you doing today, brother? We had a birthday the other day. Hope you had a good day, brother. We're up here talking about.
I'm doing pretty good. I had an echo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to see if we can take care of that here real quick.
No, I just closed out. I just muted one of the.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, now you're better. Yeah. So yeah, we're just up here talking about LLC and the dangers and pluses and negatives of it. And I noticed you just did a video the other day on LLC too, didn't you?
Yeah, I was talking about what I created a system, learning how to utilize the church, right? Devaluing the dollar. We don't value that. We take.
Remember, we spoke earlier about diplomatic, and when we looked down, it was creed of the church.
That in, and then we use that to create our own utopia by setting up an investment company where all the members are part of the religious body. They're not individual, they're under a religious mission. So all the monies we receive is from donations, and then the donations go into an investment, and then the investment, and then purchase what we need, right? Purchase, if you want a dealership or whatever, and then you would get a voucher or whatever to go get a car, clothes, or whatever you need from the church, so that you're not dependent on the United States for any of what they're trying to do. So now it's just done through contracts, learning how to utilize this system, and then I'm not creating any tax obligations. I'm using a tax avoidance strategy, right?
And that's what I'm talking about as well. Like I said, once I get this set up, the principal concept is that now that I've got the trust set up and the LLC and the title and all that's perfected with the indemnification, blah blah blah, whatever we end up with that allows me to establish and be recognized as that self-governing authority, then I can start taking under beneficiaries. And this is where we provide subsequent trusts for them. Like I said earlier, Johnny's College Fund, that you can operate that within your trust the same way as an LLC, but use it in the public market and do an investment, like he said, through vouchers and stuff to help acquire the things that he's going to need for his fund or for his college stuff, such as books and stuff, and the intuition as well, done through vouchers. Again, cancellations of debt. Again, diploma. He graduated from high school. He's got a diploma. Rightly divide the word of truth right then and there and let him know, hey, I understand that I'm not a resident. I'm not a United States citizen. I'm going to operate as an LLC, blah, blah, blah. And this is not legal advice business advice or anything. This is just me contemplating various different things that this LLC stuff can be molded into. Because that's truly what it is. It's just like the English language. Those contract terms and conditions that you can create are very beautiful if you know what you're doing.
Right.
So I don't have to pay my taxes.
Yeah, and that's what we just watched a video on a restaurant that was developed from a what the guy called here a cult, which is a religious organization of 508 C.O.W.A.R.D.S or what was it C.O.W.A.R.D.S, and basically the same thing that you're talking about, except that it was outside of the actual religious organization where they actually had a restaurant that they ran in the community. So it wasn't just the religious organization as an LLC. They also had an LLC as a restaurant that they used as a point of bringing people into the religious LLC. So they would hire people at the restaurant, and the basis was that they hired them to work for free as part of an ownership. The LLC means you're part owner. So as part owner, just their labor was an investment into the LLC.
Right. So,
which was more than just the restaurant. It was the agricultural farming and harvesting and all of that, and gathering in social forums to determine what you're going to do next with your LLC, which includes all of your life now.
I'm not coming under the statutory language. I'm gonna use the Constitution under the Article 1 to establish under the First Amendment, and then bring it in, and then have the notary authenticated. They can't. I'm not going to use, and then I'm going to use the investment. That's going to be a statutory entity, right? The church is going to be a constitutional entity. So we're not talking about any statutory law at all. We're going to deal with the scope of the constitutionality of what's going on, right?
Right. The only statutory thing in it there is the recognition of a statutory type entity, so it can mirror the regulatory sections. That's it.
Exactly. So I mean, Keith, you know this like the back of your hand. So everybody hasn't, got it together yet. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So I mean, it's just Malika, you, me, we've been at this for a while. So what I identify with is understanding how to utilize, the sacred trust, like they talk about a sacred trust. A secret trust, secret societies. That's all these institutions. They got a lot of secret societies that's running, backdoor deals. This America's for sale. Everybody is buying in and cashing out. I mean, it's just a slippery slope, and it's just going. If you're not up on everything, and I just, people. It's just funny to me that all of these people, they talk about wealth, Keith, right? But if you ask them about the Constitution, all the studying that they don't know none of the stuff you know. But they're going to tell you how to be wealthy, but you don't have no understanding about the system.
Well, not only that, but they have no understanding about how to invest itself. And if you're going to continue investing in a system that you already know is detrimental to you, then you've already failed, and you think you're successful, and you're just fooling yourself.
And like I said, the investment is a creation of money. So what you're doing is you're, on the private side, creating money for your own trust, creating assets. That's the true profit. It's coming to you as a true owner that gets to possess and use it and enter it into commerce and control it if you want to.
I mean, it goes to a generational wealth system. And when you cut off that generational tie by your own selfishness, by not passing this on to your next generation, that's the problem. If you really think you find a solution to this system and can maintain that wealth, then why is it not being passed on to the next generation?
Because the United States is a plantation. It's a slave plantation.
Yeah, franchise. Yeah. They've got everybody operating as a franchise for the United States and not knowing it. Again, that's that identification. Look on the top of the damn card. It says State of Iowa, all caps. That's a corporate entity, not a nationality.
No, it's not. And what the problem is people don't really understand. And I'm gonna tell you, it's not that I don't even think they want to understand because they're so afraid to do anything else.
Well, not only just afraid, but it's kind of cushioned by this sense of relief of convenience and comfort, thinking that somebody else is going to protect you. So you go ahead and you start living your life, and you think they're protecting you, but in the meantime, you're getting all kinds of little fines, fees, penalties, all kinds of stuff that you're really not supposed to be paying, and it's ridiculous. If you really think that's convenient, all you're doing is allowing that to take over and consume not only your life, but the generation that's coming to follow you. That's your true duty in life. Is if your ultimate priority is bring children into the world, part of that is to teach them how to live in the world.
And I'm not speaking out against government or anything here, folks. Again, I recognize what the federal government is. I'll explain it again under 5 CFR 575.102. They give you their expression of federal government, which means all entities of the government of the United States, including the United States Postal Service and the Postal Regulatory Commission. I'm not here to disown any government. I'm here to try to help educate people diplomatically of the plenipotentiary powers that they can start taking upon one by one and learn how to take over their life again by learning how to make the good choices and not the detrimental ones. It's truly our own fault.
And not only teach them how to live in the world, but make it safe for them to thrive in the world.
Yeah.
So that's our duty, is to blaze a trail for them to follow, and they build upon what we already left behind. So when you look at this black and white thing, this caste system, they tricked everybody. They say, okay, you blacks over here, you whites over there, but you ain't nothing but a slave. You just got the field in the house. You know what I mean? And that's all it is. Everybody's slaves, and they don't even know they're slaves. They trick everybody into this. It's a plantation.
That's what the comfort and convenience is about. It's so nice to have somebody else teach your children. It's so nice to have somebody else tell your children their ideologies, because
they did such a good job at it that today we have white people, white slaves, telling other white slaves to stay away from the black slaves, and we have black slaves telling other black slaves to stay away from the white slaves. They're passing on their master's message in their own slavery.
And all the 20
Then you
million
don't have to
genders.
explain your.
Say that again?
I said, and all the 20 million genders that they're teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
And get in arguments with other people about your ideologies. It's much easier just to placate that you have an ideology, not really even think about it, and just live your life like most people do, sitting on a couch, watching the boob tube as you're watching somebody else's dramatic or comedic life, because yours is so wonderful. You know,
it's funny. It's just
laziness.
It's laziness. People are lazy. Sloth. That's one of the sins, right? People don't want to grow up. They don't want to be responsible. And this take work to learn to decipher through this madness. 1 U.S.C.1, go back to the origin, the source law, and look at what they're doing,
1 U.S.C.1, words denoting numbers, gender, and so forth, correlating with John 1:1. In beginning was Word. It's one of the easiest correlations I can make for you. Look up 1 U.S.C.1 and see how it talks about words denoting number, gender, and so forth, and how singular means plural, plural means singular, that male means female, female means male. They've got you speaking a Babylized language that you don't really know what's being said when you say it. Is the suspect male or female? Well, it's male, so it's female. No, I said male. Well, the code says that male imports female and female imports the male. So when you told me male, you imported that it's female, right? That's exact.
So they got you caught up in a language that isn't true.
It's also a contract they've got you caught up in. Once we admit to a gender or a color or a race, any of those things on these forms, it's what do they call it when you contract agree without? Oh man, it's not acquiesce, is it?
Yeah, acquiesce. You acquiesce to the
without knowing, but yet we answered, "Oh, I'm black. Oh, I'm white. I'm this.
Yep.
I'm that," and all those things, like you said, data.
Yeah, you acquiesce to the false statement, saying that they were true. A lot of times they tell you, you sign under penalty of perjury, that your statements are true and correct.
Exactly what that code is saying if you read it. So again, to correct that code, 1 U.S.C.1, words denoting numbers, gender, and so forth, it correlates to John 1:1. In beginning was the Word. So one of them's right and the other one's wrong. Which one? You choose.
You know what's so funny? I did a video and I was just asking people. Let's say you create a contract, right? A non-commercial operation agreement, right? To operate your car, automobile. Don't use the word vehicle. And you just set the terms, you and the religious institution, and y'all contract. Have anybody ever tried to go into court with the contract and see how it would play out? Did they say anything to you about anything about the contract?
Well, and see, a lot of times, if you're good at contracting, you get something like that to work. But if you realize how the laws are structured, and you buy that automobile as private household goods for agricultural use. Again, when we talk about title, it's a legal title that if it merges with equitable title is possession and use. Legal title is entry and control. So when you get that certificate of title from the state, you amend it. An endorsement is an amendment to an insurance policy, and they want your signature on that title. That means it's an insurance policy. When you look at the code, that's exactly what they say. You're taking.
And this goes for the deregistration under that indemnification. You can go ahead and get a license and register that motor vehicle, but then indemnify it under the LLC, recognizing it that it's an asset that's been transferred to the LLC and it's indemnified. Nobody has to own title anymore.
Ownership of the insurance liability and the taxes. So what you're doing is you're amending the insurance that if you have to pay and there's no benefit, then it's,
and that's to say that it's not up for contract. It's in private placement. It's not a contract. The contract is the indemnification. I'm the third party beneficial user of the benefit.
Detrimental.
It's a benefit of the trust
to you. And since they can't give you a benefit without first telling you you have to pay something, which itself is a detriment, then it's not an equal exchange. So you have to cancel that invalid contract for legal title, which is entry and control of an agricultural product that they have no use of.
And it's not actually the title, it's the inauthentic claim of the surety on the title, the Keith Orland Little. And that's why we indemnify it. Now all parties are indemnified, and it's not no person can be held liable in any court. The liability has been released. The liability comes through the surety company. When you make a claim against it, they investigate it and they write you a check because it's indemnified.
It's for agriculture. And you cannot convert somebody else's agricultural labor.
Again, that's my opinion according to my research, guys. Don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe your government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. This is why I urge you to ask questions so I can continue my research and help you along yours.
Into a commodity.
I mean, in theory,
and that's exactly what they do with those types.
Go ahead.
I said in theory it makes sense. It's almost like making a claim with your insurance company.
Yeah. Instead, you don't hold insurance, you hold an indemnification, and that's what allows them to write the check. You're going to put them out of business if they don't.
Titles.
Exactly. It's all I try to tell people. What they learn how to do is pass the liability. The issue is passing on the liability so that they reap all the benefits. It's nothing but taxes. I say when you really boil down to it, it's a tax and insurance schemes. That's what everything boils down, taxes and insurance schemes. So you get stuck into this realm and line item veto. I learned this from you. Look at the contracts and start read. I tell people before you sign anything, read it. Just read it. Take the time to just read it. Just read it. Just understand before you get in any more contracts. Just take it and read it. And that's what so many people telling you, oh, we're going to get you equity. We're going to do. I'm like, y'all don't even read your contracts. You don't even know what's in it. You don't even know what's
in it. And just so everybody knows, I've been going through this thing with the jury duty. And speaking of the line item veto and stuff, that's what I did with the jury summons. I went through and I line item vetoed it. You can go back and look at my videos and see that, as well as I got pictures posted on my social sites. Now, what happened is they turned around and sent me a denial letter saying that they were denying the allowance for an exception. And so I had to write them back again, letting them know that, no, I wasn't requesting an allowance for an exception. I was pointing out clear and conspicuous errors that proved inconsistencies and impossibilities.
Stating that the exception doesn't apply. See, they thought I was trying to request an exception. No, I'm telling you, no exceptions apply. It's prejudicial. I'm not under your prejudicial or non-judicial authority of any sort. I don't volunteer.
And evidently when I sent it out, and two things. First of all, I sent it out the same day as my companion sent out a letter to her sister down in Arizona. Now mine went to the local courthouse here. Hers went to Arizona, both without a stamp or anything. And they made it to their destinations. Mine evidently made it the day that I was supposed to appear in court, so obviously I didn't appear. And that's what I told them in that letter. I wasn't going to be appearing. I don't care what you say. I'm not asking for an allowance. I'm telling you, I'm not a United States citizen. I'm not a resident. I don't have a job. I don't have a bank account. You don't have any authority whatsoever because you have no personal jurisdiction.
They
You
have
don't
no
have
right
any.
to summons you.
Right.
And
Not only that, but they
therefore
don't have
it's,
any. They don't.
it's against you. So yeah,
Yeah.
you have the right to
Yeah.
collect
And
on
they.
that.
Yeah, and they don't have subject matter jurisdiction either. If they had subject matter jurisdiction, they'd have the bills of lading, the customer list, the payments I've received, the 1099s that were supposed to be issued, all these kind of bank records and all that, and they
Your
don't.
copyright name comes into play on this too.
Right. That's that trust, the surety. So anyway, they turned around and sent me a notice. Filing has been submitted. The court reference, judge, official file stamp, 12/10/2023. Now 12/5 was supposed to be my jury date. It says case title in the matter of jury service Keith Little, document submitted.
You can go after their
OODP order
bond
of
on that.
disposition filed by or in behalf of Andrea Dreyer, the one that originally brought the bench warrant for contempt for failure to appear. You may review this filing by clicking on the following link. It says parties not served by EDMS, the rules define the clerk, the court order itself. So one of the requisites for the court to obtain personal jurisdiction is service. They never received service. The other one is the defendant needs to voluntarily appear in court. The defendant never voluntarily appeared in court. So therefore, they never obtained personal jurisdiction. The court reviewed this case on December 10th, 2023. The jury clerk informed the court that defendant was rescheduled for jury duty on December 5th, 2023, but was not needed for service on a jury on that date. It is ordered. These contempt of court proceedings are dismissed. Now, what they don't tell, so they didn't say anything about my appearance in court to have it dismissed because they received the summons that I line item vetoed and overwrote, and then still sent me a court date of the 5th. And then when I didn't show up, which was the day they received it, they turned around and said that it was dismissed because it wasn't needed. No, that's failure to accept again that you never obtained personal jurisdiction, which has been the gravamen of my whole claim. You never obtained personal jurisdiction, and you certainly don't have subject matter jurisdiction.
Yeah, they're just trying to contract with you.
Absolutely. Tell you is that the document I presented was in fact information that they were given as a notice as principal or agent that they were in fact attempting to violate the law because they didn't have personal jurisdiction, and in that personal jurisdiction they converted a last name to a firm name and a social security number to an obligor number, and I will, if I have to, hire an audit company to come in and do a forensic audit because I am not subject to their jurisdiction. They do know their job and they are committing fraud if they push this forward. And that's my claim against them. Like you said, Robert, all I got to do is take my documentation and show them that they entered that case in as a firm name, and I take that to the surety company. And the very simple claim is that they're already named as an obligee, a principal or agent.
Who are you dealing with? The clerk?
Yeah, the court, the judges that are passing this document off as an order, and then the clerk issuing it.
Yeah, but you're going through the clerk with all your documentation, correct?
No, I'm going through the mayor and the district attorney.
Yeah, but they have a clerk go after the clerk's bond in it.
Well, yeah,
I don't go after it included in your form.
Well, yeah, I'm going after it by making a claim against the surety company.
I'd attack her direct too. I know it sounds like an asshole move, but
nope. Guess what? In accordance with paragraph number 3 of the order filed September 7th, 2023, costs are taxed to defendant. It is a tax court. It is a tax issue. They are pushing tax items. That's fraud. They have to prove that I gave the court that tax identification number in order to pay the taxes as a taxpayer, and they can't do that because the evidence shows that they converted that number to an obligor number. Show me the contract where the taxes are required to be paid, because it ain't got my signature on it. Yet you're using my name in a matter of probated estate for tax purposes, and that's income tax purposes. Again, folks, remember, I told you I don't have a job, ain't had a job for 7 years, ain't had a bank account for 7 years, and the whole kit and caboodle is based on identification that I don't have either, and is impossible.
And so, being unemployed and having no employment record, how is it that 6 years later they put in this charge, failure to appear for jury duty, and claim that there's a representative still going around? See, there's absolutely no subject matter jurisdiction. None.
You know what I find funny, right? So, people teach implied contracts, right? So as I study more and more and more, before you can have an implication of anything, there has to be a contract somewhere. You can't say you're going to apply me to something based on something, and there is no contract that exists nowhere in the universe.
Yeah, it's all an implication. That's all it is. It's not a contract. It's an implication.
And that's because the data elements aren't quite as true as you might think they are. Again, if you're not a resident, they ain't true. If you're not a United States citizen, they ain't true. And guess what? Unless you're a federal, state, or municipal officer or agent whose residence presence deemed necessary by the board, you're not a resident for income tax purposes at the state level. Nor are you a United States citizen if you know that the United States citizen is a United States business.
Because it's an implication on paper or in paper, it's assumed or presumed as a legal fiction, a contract. And again, remember, folks, every time you give an endorsement, it's...
So those contracts are literally nothing but presumptions of legal fictions that haven't been rebutted.
Assumptions, presumptions, and tacit agreement.
Yep. Implied contracting. It's all just implied. It was implied that you had to have a social security number so you get a job. It was implied that you had to have a driver's license so you get a car and drive around. It was never factual. No one ever did the research. Now that we're doing,
people find out that they paid themselves at work.
yeah, well, and we find out that
we pay ourselves.
Well, we find out that Social Security is volunteer. Driver's license and all that is voluntary. It's a registration. It's a pledge. You're not forced to pledge something. That's theft. If you pledge something, you do so of your own free will and choice.
An amendment to an insurance policy. So Mom, when she signed as informant on that document, that was an amendment to an insurance policy. That was an amendment to her insurance policy, her Social Security account, to add a minor account, a linked account, so that if that baby died, the state would pay the expenses. This is the establishment of the original burial trust that coincides with the birth certificate and then is activated for execution upon the entrance of a death certificate. In the meantime, the state is administrating that estate as if though it's a probated estate. There's no living man, that the man has already passed.
And that they're supposed to settle with the creditors and collapse the trust. So why do we have probated estates that last for decades? See a big problem?
It's just funny.
See, when an estate will is put into probate, it's for the execution of the will. So if there's an abandonment of property, then how is it people are charging a decedent, a dead person, for activities that are actually going on? Is somebody abusing the estate? I mean, it seems simple logic to me.
It's like they tell you, Social Security or social service insurance or Social Security insurance. It's an insurance. Now, everybody say, well, I'm the beneficiary of the trust as it relates to me. But where's the contract to show who's the beneficiary? You have so when I tell people, law is not a guessing game. You have to know, or you should know, or should have known.
As it relates to me, it's relative to me. I am the relator. Just like the bank or the benefactor, I am the relator. We'll look that up one of these days.
For that Social Security, would we be co-beneficiaries or implied co-beneficiaries, and the beneficiary would be the state collecting the voluntary tax?
They are benefiting from that, yes, but they are the trustee as assigned, appointed, elected, commissioned, whatever. They have a fiduciary duty as a principal or agent, one way or another.
Correct.
And
correct.
that's
they're like flipping the liability.
Right, and right, and they're the ones binding us in that liability again through that signature of the public education that they provide through Health and Human Services.
So when people say you can't question the public debt, the issue is it's not so much that you're questioning it. They saying that you really can't bet it because we already signed up. We already indebted ourselves. So where's the location in the 2832 3002? It's in what? Washington, D.C. That's where the debtor lies.
Yeah, that's UCC 9-307. Debtor, subsection H. United States is located in Washington, D.C. I speak about this all the time. If United States is located in Washington, D.C., and Washington, D.C. is the physical 10 square mile boundary, then United States is merely nothing but the record. And remember again, folks, Washington, D.C. has no statehood. Therefore, that record has no statehood. And that's where they pose that they have this sovereignty. If there's no statehood, how can there be sovereignty? I just did a video this morning on statelessness. That's an interesting aspect. Go ahead.
I got a question for you. So are you not supposed to say you are a living man in court?
No, I'm the benefactor to the beneficiary. No matter how you look at it, every breath I take is an act of God in the form of a living soul. But according to their courts, I'm the benefactor to the beneficiary. And as benefactor, I haven't received the benefit yet. The beneficiary.
See, you keep the name private. You keep the name private.
Hasn't received the benefit yet, and it's being held. Justice is not for sale, denial, or delay.
And what's so funny, right? When I hear people talking about status correction, a guy was telling me there's a personal. I do personal status. Personal status. What are you talking about? So when you learn contract law, status comes in the form, and I try to tell people it's your relationship to the person, places, or thing. They teach you status to the person, place, or thing. What is your relationship to the artificial person? What is?
So this goes to the different hats that you wear. Say you're the head of agency as you walk out that door. You're the father of the house. When you get at work, you're head of agency again. You're the boss. It's essentially the same hat, different titles, and of course takes different thoughts and realizations, observations, emotions, reactions, responses, responsibilities, obligations, incentives. It's a matter of knowing and observing your surroundings and knowing those various different performances and how they play out. Nobody's been taught this. And like I said earlier, if we've got immigrants coming into this nation, this country, this whatever, and they have to go through a civics exam and pass a civics test before they can get their naturalization documents, how come the people of this very nation haven't been taught that? How come that's the one thing that's been taken out of the public education system?
What's your relationship to the man or the woman? What is your relationship to the place that they're saying? What is the thing? What is your relationship to the thing? Those three elements have to exist. They have to show you.
That's what civics is. That's learning your relationship in the various different societal environments, whether they be family, social, political, religious, whatever.
Your relationship. This is not a guessing game. Either they know or you know, or they don't have no case.
Yeah, and it's like the LLCs that we're talking about tonight. There's a very distinct difference between an LLC and a corporate entity. Corporate entity, you actually have a board of directors that can hire an attorney. Yet as an LLC, you have to develop your LLC structure to obtain that board of directors or show a board of directors, even though you're not organized under the laws of the United States as a corporate entity. You still have to be able to, like I said earlier, mirror the system. If you can't do that, then I suggest you stop what you're doing, pull it all back in, and get it out of that system, because that system will eat you up.
I mean, learn how banks operate and mirror their activities. Can you do it? Learn how accounting works and mirror their activity. Can you do it? Jack of all trades, master of none.
This sounded like just
You don't have to be perfect. Just learn as you go to get better and better.
it's a group of yahoos that come in and took over this restaurant, and that's how easy it is if you don't know how to protect yourself. Some other guy that's just the next level up will come in and take you over. And remember, there's other people that'll level you 10 times over. You really got to be savvy at this.
Yeah, and you got to understand. So I was talking about, CFRs as how everything, the relationships from like, for example, United States Post or ran by Congress. So when you go into court, who is bringing you into a court? You're getting brought in under the executive branch, all of these different agencies. They're pulling you into court, not Congress. You're not a member.
Yeah, and see, that's what we're doing is trying to pierce that corporate veil under the administrative courts that you're not a corporate entity, but yet
that's where you're presumed to be some type of employee because you're carrying government ID, which is a military government. So it's military ID, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, you can mirror that and execute your own will. That's the totality of it in the most quantum basic thing that I could say. You've got to be able to have that plenary power to operate as a corporate entity yourself. You've got to know how to be a secretary, an accountant, a tax advisor, an investment firm, an architecture, all these different things. You've got to be capable of comprehending yourself, because otherwise, if you don't, you're going to hand it over to somebody else that's going to take advantage of you. You're going to hand over the ownership of your LLC simply by bringing other people in, when your best way of action, in my opinion, is, again, don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe the government, for crying out loud. Don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. Now you know when you hire a banker that if he does something wrong, you catch it and you can fire his ass and charge him for his criminal acts. You don't have to wonder and try to take it to somebody else and see if they can figure it out for you, because that's their job. But somewhere along the line, he works for the banker too. It's fucking pathetic. People keep handing over the knowledge as if though it's convenient, and that's your detriment.
So
you woe ye lawyers who have taken away the key of knowledge.
Oh, I was also doing a video on the live stream about like a lot of these mortgages or a lot of these contracts. So most of the time I'm looking at the contracts and I'm starting to see a pattern of conduct. There's a pattern. So yeah. I see the word not paid in there defined, payment not defined. I'm seeing a lot of words that's not located. So it's not located in statute either. So when the judge talking about payment, I'm like, what are you referencing to? What?
Yeah, see, we went over that today in the video earlier. It was talking about the prepaid expenses versus prepayment. Very, very specific wording, and we need to start paying attention to it. If something's prepaid, then why are we being convinced to make a prepayment if it's already prepaid?
It's the source of law in which you're referencing. Show me the law that you're referencing so we can get this understood, because it's not in the contract.
Yep, so, and that's what Derek Gonzalez does. He gets on that coffee bean case, because if it's not in the contract, what species, then it's not there. Same concept.
So what I've been.
This goes to the HJR 192. They can't demand dollar for dollar, like I said. That's why that went through in the coffee bean case. 1,487.75 or 3/4 coffee beans, but I'll let you have that extra quarter. So it's 1,478 coffee beans. That'll suffice the debt. $1 per bean. You set your own value. Can't force you to contract dollar for dollar.
Discovering. So like on Ohio, you can file a criminal case directly into the court. And I'm saying, you guys are saying they're in violation. So if they're in violation, it's a crime. So why are you not filing yours? If you're filing a civil suit or they're filing a civil suit, why won't you ask the court, file a criminal complaint directly into court and ask the judge for a probable cause threshold? All you got to do is have an affidavit, somebody saying there's some injury. They use it all the time. It's a very minimal threshold to meet. That's all you got to do.
That's what they tried to do with this jury summons. That's what the bench warrant was. They called me in to show cause. Well, I showed them cause by response. They said, well, we'll accept your responses as failing to receive anything, and therefore service wasn't had, and therefore you didn't get the summons, and therefore you couldn't fill out a personal waiver, and therefore you couldn't appear as the defendant voluntarily. So yeah, you're right. The court doesn't have personal jurisdiction, but what we'll do is we'll send you another summons. So instead of sending me the summons to the address that I gave them, specifically directing them care of, they sent me to it, sent it under the legal name with the regular address format of the.
You're on mute, brother.
And that's an unlawful conversion of the data elements I gave. You can't do that. My yea is my yea, my nay is my nay. I made an expression, and you put down last names. I never expressed that.
Nation. So I went ahead and opened it, knowing what it was, and then I really did want to line item veto and underline or overwrite things. So I did that, sent that in, and lo and behold, instead of entering a dismissal for the bench warrant, they just made a note on the bench warrant and filed a continuance as if though they did have personal jurisdiction. And then that's why I received this letter the other day for dismissal of the contempt, because they still considered that they had personal jurisdiction when that's not been proven on the record. And in fact, they couldn't possibly have personal jurisdiction because I never voluntarily appeared in the court specifically for a hearing, except for an order hour to give the judge an order, and they failed the order.
Oh, you muted again.
Hey Keith, did you just say that you gave the judge an order?
Yes, I did. And
So then,
greetings.
you've given special tender, right, for any discharge of allegations that they're bringing forth to you? And if they rejected your tender, wouldn't that be a discharge?
Well, no, it wasn't a tender. It was a correction. And again, he misinterpreted the corrections and still assumed that somehow magically the court all of a sudden had personal jurisdiction and still has lack of subject matter jurisdiction. Greetings, Iman. How you doing tonight, sister?
All is well, brother. All is well. I'm listening in, and I just got a few questions, but I'm listening. All is well.
All right. Thank you, sister. Appreciate it.
This is just fucking pathetic. A 12th grade high school graduate. That's all I am. I've never been to college. I went to prison my 18th year. I was 18 years old when I went to prison. I'm not the intelligent one yet. I'm the one that's. You got to tell me if I'm insane or not, folks. And yet to this day, 7 years later, everything I wrote to them, dismissed it. And notice, folks, remember, you can look at my record today. They still have not received any payment for the last 11 cases. They still have not received a DNA sample that they demanded on the last one. They still have not gotten a drug eval that they demanded on the last one. They still have not issued any bench warrants for the 11 prior ones that I never appeared in court.
And they still haven't gotten paid on the last one, which was like $4,800 for my nice luxurious stay for 45 days in their main hotel.
Like I said before, effective communication. It's all about effective communication. It's privilege. Like I talk about privilege. They talk even in their code. They talk about
Effective communication, and this is what I'm talking about here recently with this supposed trespass. I want to get a hold of the city clerk so I can find out the exact name of the surety company so I can make that claim for it. Well, there's evidently a lack of communication because I haven't gotten a word back yet. Same with the DA.
about privileged communication. They tell you. So I learned how they doing is manipulating the process. It's a form of manipulation. And it's an art, it's a skill. And once you understand how to deal with these issues, right? So a lot of these problems will start to implode, things that you shed light on, because they don't really want you to expose everything and really highlight the areas. Because a lot of this stuff, if you look at a lot of the stuff they're doing, like most of these procedures and all of this stuff, they're not even following none of this stuff. So most of the time I just argue due process issues. This is all wrong. You're not even following what you said you was gonna follow. So how
exactly like I said with this jury summons, I told them I don't have income. I haven't had a job for 7 years. I don't even have a bank account. And yet here we are. They're sending me documents that say, what is it? Costs are taxed to defendant, and judgment is entered against defendant for those costs. That means it is a tax issue, and they're wanting me to pay the taxes that are supposed to be prepaid before they issued the bond. Remember, they issued the bench warrant. That's a $350 bond, and they issued it on something that had no citation, no long title, no disposition records. Notice this says disposition for costs are taxed. Okay, let me get that. Where did it say disposition? Documents submitted. OODP order of disposition. No disposition was found. No bond was found. Yet they feel a need to issue a bond and a disposition order, despite zero finances, no charges, no long title, no citation. These people are just totally fucking insane.
So I try to tell people, when you understand, like, it's always a paper trail. So like they're trying to hit you with a tax. So I try to tell people, okay, where's the tax coming from? So when I think of tax, I think
Absolutely, brother. All glory goes to God. Spitting image and likeness.
think about a lien. I say, okay, what are you leaning? What is lien? What am I possessing of that you're going to charge me a fee schedule for that I ain't even using? What
your labor. They're trying to force your labor. That's 18 U.S.C. 1589, folks, and consequently, the penalty for that is 30 years. Consequently, that's what most of the major bonds last for. Is
and I misstated that. It's actually 20 years. There is another code out there for 30 years. I'll have to pull it up someday.
The maturity of 30 years.
But this is what I'm saying to you, right? So under their own codes, a labor can't be taxed. So what is we talking about? Is that an oxymoron? What is it? Is that a conflict?
See, your labor was converted to a commodity.
Absolutely. That's what I point out to.
Your labor was converted to a commodity through your contract. It's called hypothecation of customer security.
Yeah, but filing W-2,
I can't
W-4.
say what? Yep.
By filing a W-2, W-4, and 1040.
Yep. They get you wrapped right up in it.
Do the works that you're demanding me of, because I have a faithful saying that.
Go ahead, sister.
I didn't hear what the brother said. It was kind of muffled.
I said that it was converted through, converted through the W-2, W-4, and the 1040. That gives you a conversion for benefits.
Correct.
So, Keith, what about the 1041? Isn't that something to do with trust?
Yep. And that's, again, if you want to get involved in that tax system when you're not subject to it, taxes are voluntary.
So basically that 1041 for trust is an internal form for their persons, correct?
I imagine so. I wouldn't use it. I'm not supposed to be using those forms.
Foreign grantor trust, since there's a lot of people that like setting up foreign grantor trust with the 98 number that they refer to, they'd be utilizing a 1041, I believe.
Well, again, if you're a private foundation, you're not a corporate entity in partnership. It's a private placement. I assure you, I wouldn't be using any of those, and that's what I'm working towards. Why would you use them and provide an indemnification? Wouldn't you suppose that indemnification would provide that you wouldn't be required to use them because you're automatically indemnifying everybody? That's the thing about coming to the table with big pocket chips, 73 million, and the guy across the table says, okay, I'll call you 73 million and raise you 73 million. You got another 73 million, then bitches are going to fold.
So basically, Brother Keith, all instrumentalities or applications that they induce you to fill out based on a security is based on indemnification, correct?
Correct.
So they're literally having you to indemnify their records.
Correct. And that's all they need. So why do they need you to securitize an instrument if you've already got one securitized under full faith and credit? And it's the surety. The surety. They can't do it. They can't bring the surety forward anymore. They have to bring their surety. Oops.
Key wills that I constantly affirm that people who believe in.
Say that again.
No, I had a thought early on when I, was just starting out in the world, and a friend was encouraging me to share an apartment with her, but then I found she introduced me to a gentleman who was he was a landlord, and he would take these old homes and refurbish them to like duplexes or apartments, right? So when he encouraged me to rent from him, I asked him, I said, well, can I fix up the apartment so I can feel at home and comfortable, because it was based on the way he wanted it. And he said, sure. So he told me any expense that I had was to give him the receipt and the difference of the rent. And I did that for years with him. And, I don't know if that's one of the process that we are supposed to be utilizing with these rental,
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely. You're supposed to come with equity. That means you help make an equal consideration exchange for your usufruct.
God are careful to maintain good works. And this is the point about faith is dead without works.
But
you have to live up to your faith.
Right, but don't we supposed to walk in faith, not by sight? Right? Everything supposed to be in good faith. Ain't that what they're saying? Everything is in good faith. The good faith standard, right? They even allow officers get immunity if they're operating in good faith. Ain't this the standard of what they use all the time, the good faith? So then they turn around and do this. Now you're operating from fruit of a poisonous tree. You can't break the law to enforce it. It's the possibility doctrine.
That's exactly what I mentioned earlier. See, those officers are playing a silly game.
Yeah, and they're using their position in this stuff. Like we saw in the video, the officer said, he asked, he said we didn't have proof of what they were saying. Well, can I give you proof? And he says, no, I'm not an attorney. Well, no, but you're an officer, and that's what you're supposed to be doing is looking for evidence. And now you're showing that you're plainly biased. And we've got to understand that. Until you learn how to safeguard yourself, no safety regulations are ever going to be used for you. None. They're going to be used against you.
So
these
one of the things that I try to teach.
So basically, the minimum contact with these officers, they are in commerce to engage in oh my gosh, in investigations. Correct? That's what they're doing. They're creating investigations.
Correct. And that's their duty, is to investigate so they can gather proof. They're denying proof. That's bias.
So where does the omission? So where does the omission and the I forgot the other word. It's omission and something else. Where does that come in with the investigation that is being perpetrated?
The errors and omissions is they're not following their job. They're supposed to investigate and gather proof. The guy is giving him proof that it's a civil action and that they are doing it legally, and he's not accepting it. So he's showing his bias, which is an error through omission of proof. Blatant disregard.
Law create contractual safeguards, elements in the contract, like a block grant. Like, I'm not granting that under contract. Different things that you can establish for communication purpose. And now you got the material evidence that you can use. And what this does is it's allow me to stay sharp, Keith. This allow me to have that mental sharpness when I talk to them. Because sometimes when I talk to people, I can see when I'm talking to them, because I was just talking to the school about, and they, like the lady was trying to tell me. So this is one of the things, right? We were talking about my daughter getting to school, right? and it was funny. And they have a federal policy, right? Immigrants can go to school. You don't need to have a status to go to school. And I'm saying to the lady, I said, did you see what I sent you? This is federal policy. And I said, so how can an immigrant go to school? And they don't have to, but you're telling me all of these different things that we have to do. I said, it's not making sense. So when I got
an immigrant doesn't have to, but you do. Does that sound like inconsistency in rights in the education system? And if they don't have to go to public education, again, I question that naturalization process where they have a civics requirement. Again, they're required the civics course, but not public education. We're required public education, but not the civics course. How does that work? Come the fuck on.
After talking to her, I could see that she was like, she just got stuck. She's like, I'm not the person you can, I don't know any of this, what you're talking about. You have to talk to the lawyer. I said, well, let him call me, you know. And I never got in touch with him. You know, everything got resolved, but they don't know.
And see, that's, I mentioned a portion of that in my video I did this morning on statelessness.
And yes, by fulfilling the law is merely bringing the truth to the surface. There are errors and omissions. The integrity of record is at fault. I ask for forgiveness, for I'm the one that entered the error data elements. That's all we're doing, correcting things, asking for forgiveness in repentance, promising not to do it again. I can't, in good conscience, enter in data elements that I know will create a debt against the United States. Oops. A stateless person, according to their doctrines, not law, but doctrines, are to be provided administrative assistance, not administrative rule and authority, but administrative assistance. And this is because, again, the Judicial Office Department, an independent and neutral forum within the United States Postal Service, comprising of the judicial officer, the administrative law judge, and the Postal Service Board of Contract Appeals. Again, it is a contract issue under administration of a judicial authority of some kind of value in a contract somewhere that evidently has dispositioned you as a trustee when you're not even qualified.
Because you're technically not, particularly here in the United States. Again, let me point it out one more time. If the United States has no birth registration, then there is no record that you were born in the United States. And again, if the United States is located in Washington, D.C., and the United States is nothing but that record, then again, you were not born into a record. You were born into the real world, and a legal fiction was birthed into that record. That's it. There's a distinct difference. It is not a nationality, as the United States is not a nation, but a corporation. These things are all inconsistent letter of the law shit that proves it to be impossible.
So Keith, if these
Not
nations
real quick here. Knowledge, it says your device is not connected. If you want to drop out and try to come back in, go ahead, sister.
So these other countries that the United States has a relationship with, most of the time these countries have to also have a constitution, but don't they also again have to have a treaty? Isn't it based on treaty, constitutions and treaties for them to have a relationship in order to do business?
Correct, and that's the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union that sets out the contract terms and conditions to be a member country and be chartered with the UN, and then the brain fart. Ask your question again real quick, please.
These countries that have constitutions just like the United States, don't they also have to have a treaty in a relationship?
Correct. The treaty is the ultimate naval treaty. of which there's the about 560 some sub-treaties underneath that, and they can form those as well with the nations that they wish to trade with. That's
So
like the
in
U.S.
these,
That's like the USMCA, United States Mexico Canada Treaty. Now that replaces NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement that we used to be under. So
so
they
a lot
change
of
over
these
time.
so the member nations, wouldn't they be up under the umbrella of the United States when they have a relationship through Constitution and treaty?
Right. That's what the states of the Union did. They ceded their jurisdiction to the United States and its Constitution, and the United States, as a corporate charter, has a a contract charter with the Universal Postal Union's Constitution through the UN. So it's just a sub charter. It's a franchise, basically.
So Keith, are you saying that the postal constitution will be the supreme constitution under the United States Constitution with the Postal Regulatory Commission?
No, it is the international constitution that the United States has agreed to under contract terms and conditions. It is superior to the United States Constitution. That's the one that a nation goes forth and accepts and amends and then hands back for well, it's a recognition process, saying just like your House and Senate, you pass a bill through the House, it goes to the Senate for approval, and then goes back to the House to make sure that it's good, and you're done. It's the same process for a treaty. You're accepting and amending contract terms and conditions in the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union as a nation, and it's going to be equal consideration, equal benefit for your gross domestic products and commodities, which aren't the same as other nations. So you get to amend it according to your development stage, all of that, as a nation. That's what those are. Those are contracts. Under those contracts, or with those contracts, you have to have a treaty. That's the same thing as a trust.
The United States joins just like all the other countries join.
Right.
It's just, we join into it.
What's so funny, right? As we talk about their own doctrine of impossibility in correlation to the events, right? So, this corporation that's trying to impose its jurisdictional issues, it's like you try to, so now they're trying to say, okay, you signed off on these documents. So everything that you signed from your mother signed from the time you were born and issue these documents, they say they don't practice slavery, right? The 13th.
See, that was the first inauthentic claim, was that mom was an informant in granting that the information was true, correct, and warranted, when that's not so. If mom would have understood the grammar and what it does and establishes, she may not have, and I would pose would likely not have done so, particularly if dad was around. Dad would have said, oh no, he's a member of our trust, private.
Don't they force people now at hospitals to fill out the birth certificate paperwork?
Well, yeah, and that's why I say it's a surety bond. So if you know what it is, as soon as mom and dad get it, they can put it up as put it up with an indemnification, so it can never be used against them.
Amendment says what? Any type of relic, incident, right? Incidentals, right? We talk about slavery, right? These are badges or relics of a slave condition, and they like to use the word. What's the word? Comity. Oh, they using the word comity as if that is suffice to say you're under contract, but you don't have an oath. I never took a
Yeah, that's that minimum state contacts where you're pledging stuff through registrations and stuff. And that's what he's talking about, the comedy.
I never contract.
It's C.O.W.A.R.D.S.
I never said I was going to be a trustee. Show me the contract. There's no conditions of contract. So then they try to impose their debt obligation that they got into on you, saying that hold on, show me how all of this, just show it to me.
See, and that's that state's minimum contacts. That's what they consider comedy. It's the connection, the nexus. And your minimum state contacts is every document you sign, whether it be an insurance document, a bank document, a check, a money order, registration for an automobile, registration of your children at the hospital, registration of your children at the school, registration of your children into the military, all kinds of stuff. Everything you sign is a signed writing. And that signed writing, again, if you look in your state codes, is most likely going to be defined under your trust code. Every time you sign, that's an endorsement, and you're signing or amending an insurance contract, and that insurance contract is directly related to that burial trust.
So Keith, in the S sign, if you break up the word as, and then sign, that means the way, if you qualify your signature as sign, then you're protecting your own identity as private man and woman, correct?
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about by recognizing what that signature is. 3-401 talks about that signature being a mark. And you can change your mark anytime you want. Greetings, La India Maria. How you doing tonight, sister?
Greetings,
So
brother
in the
Keith and friends.
Constitution, when they're talking about a mark in the Constitution, is that what they're referencing to, beloved brother?
I don't know. All I know is what's under 3-401 explains that we have the ability to just place a mark.
All for probate. It's all done in probate. The only way they can administrate in an estate is if it's been probated. That means the man has to have deceased. I'm alive.
Absolutely. Paul C. Baum 74 says, join in agreement for a more perfect union with the power to amend and appoint. Yep. Preamble. To form a more perfect union. We discussed that. What's the difference between unit, unity, united, union? This is why I spoke about the credit union. Full faith and credit. A more perfect union of true credit. For all glory goes to God, which is the foundation of the supreme law of the land, known as the common law.
Scott versus McNeil, 1894. The court of probate has no jurisdiction over the estate of a person who is in fact alive. Can't be had.
But this is where they talk about you have to have a living trust to bypass probate, right? All of this stuff it's an impossibility. None of this stuff is really
Yeah, that's that living will expressed in a trust form. And all you have to do is express it. And that's a certificate of trust. That's it.
The true application of law. Show me the source of law. Show me who's coming up with this stuff.
Of course, they're going to test you. Do not belay the fact that they are going to test you to see if you really know what trust law is. And of course, if you know what trust law is and its purpose is to protect contracts, you better know what contracts are too.
You better not be in court.
Yeah. Study to show yourself worthy and approved, rightly dividing the word of truth.
The only thing that I see as a trust is every word of God is pure. It is a shield unto him who put their trust in God. This is why I depend upon the word. And again, a trust shall not fail for want of trustee. So even without Jesus Christ, I can stand as a witness to myself and a witness that I have faith in our Father which art in heaven. And mashallah, it is his will that I do so, constantly affirming that he who did believe in God be careful to maintain good works. That's all I'm here to do. If it happens to be similar works as Jesus, then hallelujah. I hope to be able to emulate the good works that are profitable unto man. Because if I can't, I can only hope to do better.
So the saying contract
but this is
makes
where
the law. is that just a phraseology that's, or is it part of equity?
Say that again.
The phrase contract makes the law, is that a phraseology or is it a part of um
Well, yeah, it's part of equity. It's equity imputes an intent to fulfill an obligation, and a contract is an equal consideration, equal benefit of exchanging obligations and duties, responsibilities in a transfer of property, labor, money, or services.
People where they talk about you have to have a living trust to bypass probate, right? All of this stuff it's an impossibility. None of this stuff is really under the true application of law. Show me the source of law. Show me who's coming up with this stuff.
The only thing that I see as a trust is every word of God is pure. It is a shield unto him who put their trust in God. This is why I depend upon the word. And again,
and those who know the law without having, or do the law by their nature without knowing the law, are a law unto themselves. Again, just like a trust shall not fail for want of trustee, you shall not have failure of an immutable promise to seek counsel in God because of some loss of Jesus or something. You can still find that source. All glory goes to the Creator, the creation. If not for that, I wouldn't be here.
The trust shall not fail for want of trustee. So even without Jesus Christ, I can stand as a witness to myself and a witness that I have faith in our Father which art in heaven. And mashallah, it is his will that I do so, constantly affirming that he who did believe in God be careful to maintain good works. That's all I'm here to do. If it happens to be similar works as Jesus, then hallelujah. I hope to be able to emulate the good works that are profitable unto men. Because if I can't, I can only hope to do better.
I'm just, sometimes the more you read and study, you just sometimes you say, what are we living in? Sometimes I ask myself, I said, did I die and go to hell?
Well, I try to explain to everybody this computer, these devices that we get on, this is a metaverse. It's not real and everything. Yeah, and when it comes to how we can use it, I talk about Phillips and Bartle, and he was the guy that did the Stanford Prison Project. He also does nowadays what's called the Heroic Imagination Project. And so this forum that we have here, these devices, is a way we can develop our character and be the hero that we want to be, because it's a place where we can come repeatedly to learn and exercise our noggin.
Now, the Virgin group in the beginning of the video that we were discussing, that's kind of the way I see how they acted. They acted kind of in a heroic imagination project, projecting their heroic imagination of saving all these trafficking victims by shutting down this cult. So they devised a plan to go in and take over. Ingenious plan at that. Kind of makes a guy wonder where they get this stuff. I mean, they certainly did study to shew themselves worthy and approved. And like I said, I'll do a follow-up on them and find out if there was a result to the lawsuit.
I'm just like, so I listen to, I listen to a lot of stuff. I still watch a lot of your videos, as we cross paths through our journey. But I'm just looking at like, wow, like some of the stuff, the conduct, and it's egregious in a lot of their acts. And they're supposed to be public trustees. They're supposed to preserve the peace.
And this is why I say we have to start teaching them, educating them by the first duty in law is legal notice. And once you give them that legal notice that they're in misfeasance of trust, they need to pay attention to it, because if they continue on, now you can get them for malfeasance of trust. And that's when it goes to those extra pecuniary damages for things like forced labor, using the law for which it's not intended, whether it be civil, criminal, or administrative.
Yeah, and that's a large part of the problem that they have nowadays, is because people think they have this right to protest and stuff, and so they've gotten real aggressive with them. And I'm no innocent little lamb about that. I'm guilty as fuck. I'm one of the worst. And so I've realized that You know, these people are responding in their own cognitive dissonance to people that have been treating them like myself in my own cognitive dissonance. So it's none of it's been doing any of us any good. And now I just have to keep reaffirming that my fault in it is my duty to fix my fault in it and come as peaceful as possible and try to repent and forgive for those errors in the past. That's the only way I'm going to be able to be better about myself and have any hopes of rectifying the situation with the people that already know me as that angry old man that used to fucking flip them off, call them all kinds of names, and get really fucking rude with them. You know, I still have a hard time with that sometimes. I don't want to be nice, but I've got to force it. And I've gotten a lot better about it. So.
Yeah, sometimes I just learned that you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. You have to, I think it's more of an education process. I think the world is just produced by a caste system that keep them in a perpetual state of misery. And people don't understand how to create their own utopia. And, you know, and it's all based on this false premises of this financial system that they're trying to institute. And that's what people are chasing on this, you know. Hamster wheel over.
Well, yeah, and everybody wants to be the next king, and that's what it's about. Everybody demanded a king, and now that they've demanded a king, it's a popularity contest to see who's going to be the next king. Remember, Mom and Dad always told us when we were kids, you can grow up to be president if you want to, son. You know, and now they're telling their daughters, you can grow up to be president if you want to, dear. You know, and that's the equal rights and everything that we placate as if though we know what we're talking about when we're not equal. Everybody has their own talents, and we need to learn how to be diverse about that instead of trying to correlate everybody as a singularity where there is no diversity at all. That's going to destroy us.
Right. I think that's why they're going to rig the system to have the first female president be Kamala Harris, because they can't get a female to be elected fairly.
I don't think it'll happen.
I don't think so either. I don't think the system is already rigged. It's rigged. It's been rigged. It was rigged from the beginning. That's why certain people, a certain group of people dominate in certain spaces of this. You know what I mean? Because it's a rigged system. It's nothing fair about it. You know, it's just we coexist in it. I think.
And he is absolutely true here. Remember, President Trump told everybody it was a rigged system. How did he know? He uses it. And why didn't Hillary Clinton speak up and deny it? Because she uses it too. So does everybody else.
I think the problem is that our common man, we have been beat down with so distrust. We don't trust each other. That's the biggest thing. We won't come together for our own empowerment. Like if we put all our pennies together, we can make our own utopia, and nobody can say nothing about it. But because we live in this divided space, and we won't be diverse, and we live in this caste system, and we.
And doesn't that sound just like the LLC we were reviewing to begin with, the cult LLC, the same kind of concept. Just you don't have to be a cult about it. Be righteous.
Allow them to continue.
Know how to control its growth, so you don't end up with some kind of amazing takeover.
For this machine to work, we won't come together. We won't come together, and that's the problem. And that's where they thrive in our inability to unite. To say enough is enough. Let's work together. We don't even need to ask them for too much of anything, because the people that make up government is the common man that got sucked into the idealism of what they're talking about. They got sucked into this objective. And you got all these great minds that can come together and do all types of things. But we choose not to. Because it
got sucked into it, got enough money to be comfortable, and started watching boob tubes and watching somebody else's life.
Even with this process we're talking about, I found that I've known other people that have been able to work their way through it, and once they get their stuff in line, in order, they tend to stay by themselves and get greedy, and instead of getting a community together, right. I'm finding that's kind of hard, you know.
Yeah, it's a matter.
People, but seems like a lot of people are greedy.
Yeah, it's a matter of waging it in somewhere in the middle according to your own social rank, how many friends you've got, family, how many of them you really trust, what their skills and trades are. You know, it's not necessarily something that an individual man should take on, but it's the starting step.
Even with my children, I have 5 kids, and they're in their late 30s to, I don't know, 20s, late 20s, and they're like, "Yeah, that's just too much. It's too complicated. We got our kids. We got this. And it's like trying to sit them down and explain. It's tough. It's just it's a tough way to go for a lot of them.
Yep,
So
I agree.
I'm
I
still
agree.
hopeful.
And when it comes to tribes, it says, first, let's say, judicial notice of a court's lack of jurisdiction may be quite useful in many circumstances, especially since the rules of evidence can't be departed without endangering private as well as public rights. This is why I bring up the topic of indemnification. No person shall be held liable in any court.
Who don't feel safe. I don't trust you. But you trust everybody. You go out, you catch the bus. You trust that the bus driver is not high on meth. You trust that people are on the expressway going to.
That's that judicial notice that I'm talking about. You give them notice, and now that they're on notice, you're giving them notice of misfeasance that's already occurred. Now if they act against that, now it is malfeasance. Yes, judicial notice is a form of evidence. Registered mail judicial notice.
Work. You trust everything. You trust that the gas and electric is going to work, so you and your kids don't freeze in your home. You trust all the time, but you
blindly,
but you refuse to trust your own brethren. We refuse to do this. We refuse to come together. We refuse to stand in line together. United, we stand. Divided, we fall. Period.
Yeah, it's the destruction of the family unit, and it's because it seems to be so much work to stand as a family unit, a single family caste, as our brother was talking about caste systems earlier, and the kings. See, you'd rather be part of a king's castship or a casting rather than your own family casting. And your mom and dad placate the exact same thing, like I said, by telling you, listen, son, one day you can grow up to be that king. Why don't you be the king you already are?
Everybody can't be the dentist. Everybody can't be the doctor. Everybody can't be the nurse. Everybody can't be the pianist. Everybody can't be the same. This is what makes the world go round. This is what makes the universe. The Big Bang Theory, bang, it came into existence. Everything the universe understood. It was a thought. We talk about the Big Bang. It was just the earth, the universe thinking, okay, I'm coming to create what I thought. And it just like in the mind, when you're thinking, the mind kind of explode into this idea, and then you manifest it. It's the same consciousness. I don't.
Yeah, it's the principle in the scriptures about going forth with your talents. You do have to invest in this life. So again, if you're going to invest, I suggest you invest in yourself through your own true value. That way, once you can build that up so it's overwhelming, your cup wells over, now you can invest it into other people in such things as LLCs and cooperatives and working together.
And again, that's that principle of you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But the real principal foundation of it is the teaching. And that is what's supposed to go on generation after generation, for my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Otherwise, this is how we come with our technological advances and learn how to fish more efficiently.
Until then, you still have to maintain good works that are profitable unto men by making sure you're careful yourself, looking out for your safety and protecting yourself with the wisdom and knowledge. You can't do that, then just simply handing your business over to somebody else is most certainly detrimental to you.
And what I tell people, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail, because they're going to continue the presumption. If you
just go with we call it just go with the plan. Just go with the plan, boys.
Right. It's just,
and that's why I say once you get certain information and you have a knowledge, there's certain information that you need to start rebutting and start asking more and more questions in a peaceful manner, merely to correct the records. And it brings about the inconsistencies, the integrity of the record, and the fact that there are some impossibilities.
Man, I'm just like, wow. So I'm really appreciative, like, to listen and understand, like, we are of the same, like, spirit and mind, right? That we're brothers in the same journey, you know.
Well, the more of us that come together and connect like this, brother, the better it's going to get. And that goes right along again with what I said earlier with this LLC. If you're not careful, there's that old thing that says keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And if you're not careful and you invite too many enemies into your circle, that may not be quite as good as that saying portrays it to be.
Just another aspect, so you guys can see here, folks. I want to point out, I really don't care if you don't love me back. That's actually one of the safety mechanisms. And again, I've said many times, you don't want to be my friend either. This is a hardcore investment in the full armor of God. Believe nothing less.
Right.
You know, you've got to be aware of exactly who your enemies are and where they're at. I assure you, yes, I agree with that. But to keep all of your enemies as close may not be quite the best idea. So again, be very aware and protect yourself, no matter who your friends are, no matter who your enemies are. Always be a man that can stand alone. All right. Well, with that, guys, you got anything else?
And again, that takes a process. You can't just be a man that can stand alone, even as a young man, despite the fact that mom and dad might ascertain that you can go out on the world as an adult now. Their judgment may be off. Don't believe them. Like I said, don't believe me. Don't believe your neighbor. Don't believe the government. And if you're crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. It's so pathetic we have so many youngsters going out of high school today with that supposed diploma and thinking they know enough. And they can't rightly divide the word of truth because they've never been taught that.
College, all education.
Yep. Yeah. What do you guys got on the way out?
I'm just continue learning and studying, brother. I'm just grateful with the information that you bring. And a lot of things are starting to add up for me. And, the more I put in the work, the more I see. I yield.
Yep. And this is, I think I mentioned it in that video we reviewed, Timothy 3:8. This is a faithful saying that I will, that thou constantly affirm. He who believed in God, be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable unto men. If that's his will, that's my will. I accept his oath to seek his immutable counsel to follow his will. And that is to constantly affirm that will and be careful to maintain, knowing that I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself. I'm supposed to honor my Father in heaven, my mother in earth, pay holy Sabbath to the Father once every 7 days, the holy Sabbath to the mother every 7 years, this and that, many different things. And this is just a matter of observing things in their season and letting things be ripe for their time. Being patient. Studying to shew thyself worthy and proved. The reward will come just simply by happenstance, in my case, I imagine. I'm not going to try to force anything anymore. I'm going to let them know that this is what's going to happen here. I'm going to make a claim against that surety bond. And when it all gets said and done, I hope everybody can use it as a learning mechanism. Because you've got me all confused. I made some mistakes. I've repented. I'm not who you think I am.
So, Keith, in a rental sense, if you're making a claim against the surety bond, wouldn't that be the address would be the surety or is instituted as the surety, and then the number being the bond number tied or attached to the security? How would one
When
do that?
you're doing your signatures and signing things like that, they're using that driver's license, which is connected to the birth certificate, which is the surety. They're swapping their surety liability for you as the surety. They're saying you're the public official. That's what the record will reflect. That's why it says you're required to have insurance, because you're the surety.
They actually have a bond that when you ask for it, they actually give you a copy of the bond, and then you make it into a security, and your signature, your endorsement, it's the only thing that can give it value, and then you place your value on that when you turn it in. But it's an actual it's an actual bond that they have.
Yep.
I don't know if that helps you see it any better.
So Keith, if money is an exchange of medium and for value, then does one have to request the bond for them to show the bond attached to the security when they're asking you to make application to in a whether you're going to education, whether you're renting from a corporation or any of those things? Is that what we're supposed to be doing?
No, you're not asking them to present a bond at all. You're the one that's supposed to present the bond with an indemnification agreement. Poof, there goes the student loan. Poof, there goes your bills. You indemnify everything. You cancel the debt.
Okay, make sense to me right now, because I'm following you, but something isn't connecting.
They're creating a debt against the United States.
The only time you ask for their bond is if they're doing harm to you, like courts, clerks, people that can actually enforce their codes. That's when you ask for their bond. All this other stuff it's paid for through us. I guess you can look at it as a birth certificate, but it's really not the birth
Yeah,
certificate.
that's the bond. So you just
And that's
order
everybody.
So you just order the bond from the Secretary of State. Now you're holder in due course. You attach your indemnification agreement with it. And I think then you're supposed to do a 1099-C to cancel the debt. And that's by the receipt. Commanding officer shall cause receipts to be issued so the spoliated owner may obtain indemnity. That receipt will show that it's a debt against the United States.
Like in the situation with you with the trespass, that was harm that was caused, right? So now you would have to request the bond through did you say the Secretary of State? And then
No, the surety company. I've already got a birth certificate bond. I've got 3 of them.
Okay.
And I'm going to make a claim with the surety company, not the courts.
All these people have their individual, and then it gets like the sheriff has each individual sheriff, and then their commanders and so on, and then there's one big one that you're going after, right, Keith? You're going after their main one.
Right. That's the one that's certified by the United States to be a surety company. If they're not certified by the United States, then they made a false claim against the United States as pursuant to a debt and proves that they're not following the laws of the United States. Who do you think is going to be pissed at them?
Military.
That's their insurance, basically.
Yeah, the United States.
Yeah.
The federal government, the United States Postal Service, as the registered agent who has a postal service contract with them under the Postal Regulatory Commission, military.
So basically, what they're doing, each person have their own bond, and then they pool everything into a larger bond in order to have the protection that they have through the United States.
Yeah, that's why I say if we follow that SEC agreement that we saw the other day, last Sunday, and it showed 4 bonds, and they raised incrementally. The first one was 8,500,000. The next one was like 24 million. The next one was like 75 million. The next one like 137 million. And so what I see is, and I'm not sure yet, but I think that's the municipality, the county, the state, and the federal. So the farther you go up the line in the indemnification or the surety, the greater the surety amounts get.
So is that what they call PAR? P-A-R?
Yep, par value. They're distributing it. It's the foreign trade zone to the state. They get a portion federal funding. They distribute their foreign trade agreement to the county. They get a portion of federal funding, and then the municipality foreign trade zone federal funding through federal registered or federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose resident presence is deemed necessary by the board for national security purposes to securitize the documents.
Well, this is what they're creating in leases as well, because they have the different PAR codes embossed or embedded within a lease as well. So they're doing the same thing, correct?
Right. And like I said, we talked about maintenance and champerty too. Maintenance is the thing where you would sell a portion of the suit to somebody else to make the representation in court. So when you get a lease agreement, you're filling it out, and it says you agree to upkeep the maintenance on the premises. Oh, you've just been duped. Can you make a representation in court? You're maintaining a suit under champerty. Champerty as maintaining you're the main hold. You're the main holder of the suit. Tain is a hold. You're the main holder in the suit. You're not a maintenance guy who only bought a portion of the suit as an investment. That's what attorneys do. They charge you. They just bought an investment.
Right, it's terms and interest. You just gotta assign it correctly and appropriately.
Is there anything I can get you?
It's funny because it's all paid. Like, I read a lease agreement, and the wording in it basically says that it's paid for. Like, they should be paying us to lease their building to take care of, do all those things you're talking about.
Right.
And
if I'm going to
do their paperwork properly and get credited
Well, the
back.
lease agreement is an eligible paper.
Well, yeah, if you're going to take care of the maintenance, then you better put a fee schedule down there. $750 for rent, and I'm supposed to take care of the maintenance. I want $750 in equal exchange for the maintenance.
So correct.
That's my labor.
What they're doing, they're making. So when somebody makes application for leasing or for renting, then what they're doing is the bait and switch, because what they're doing then, the person that's the leasee renting becomes the maintenance person, and then does the landlord become the leasee in order to receive the benefit?
I don't know how they're
landlord's not
working
even
it.
doing their job properly, though.
Yeah.
Because they don't know.
Yeah, they're on the title as tenant, so I don't know how the fuck they're trying to do this shit. All I know is it's aired, and I can tell you where on my situation, the name. It's not qualified. Inauthentic claim. Ab initio, nunc pro tunc, by my mother, who obviously wasn't in her right mind. And with that, you got anything else, guys?
Thank you.
No, just
Thank you,
excited for
Keith,
tomorrow.
Brother Keith.
Thank you.
No, thanks, man.
You bet. Anytime, guys. And you know me, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Bye now.
See you, Keith.